Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Sunday Night Astro Live. I'm Robert Phoenix, and it is September 17th. And I guess we didn't have a show last week, did we? I was battling with the internets. That's what was going on. Let me see if I can get the green screen the way that I like it. Let me see if I can make it a little crisper. Oh, no, not quite there. Right there. I think we'll go with that. Why not? We're still kind of in the new moon phase, and we are on the surface of the moon here with Stanley and the crew. The little 2001 Space Odyssey. Welcome to the show. We'll be here for a couple hours. We'll be talking astrology tonight, and it's really the last week of Virgo, right? We move into Libra next week, and so we'll go through the whole Libran roll call. Also, Dr. Narco Longo, the good professor from Florida, will be on the show, and we'll be talking Libra and Venus and Eden and all kinds of really interesting things to hopefully enliven your world and bring you some aesthetic sensibility. And not only that, but take you into potentially a realm of beauty, right? We're going to be one day removed from the big, what is it, Saturday, the 23rd. We're going to look at the 23rd chart tonight. There's been a buzz on the, it seems like every year there's a buzz around the 23rd. It's either the 22nd or the 23rd, like something is planned to go down around the equinox. It's like deja vu, right? We've been here before. And usually the chatter is the loudest around the election cycle in October surprise. So we're going to get into the September 23rd chart tonight. So I'll give you the layout of the land. That's what we're going to be talking about. I'm really interested in Keanu Reeves, who's a Virgo, by the way. Keanu Reeves as this cinematic portrayal of Cyberchrist. And we've looked at the supposed birth chart of Jesus, which I do believe is 9/11. And there are a number of other church scholars. And these are very Christian people. That these are Christian ministers and scholars. Oh, I'm echoing a bit. Okay. Let me see. Well, I'm not on YouTube, so my YouTube is not up. Let's see what we got here. Choppy. Okay, should I restart everything? Should I do a redo? Want to do a redo? Let's do a redo. All right, don't go away. It's a Mercury Retrograde. I'll be right back. See you in a bit. All right, let's try it again, shall we? Let's see if the settings are good. We got the pro cam, we got the audio, lavalier mic. Hopefully that should be better. Yes, that should be better. There we go. Remind me later. How's that? Are we good now? Less choppy? Yeah. For some reason, it's like I have to flush the electromagnetic field or something before I do the show every now and then. Yeah, thank you everybody for letting me know. Cool. Okay. Good. We're Virgoing around here. We endeavor to do better. It's really funny. Tonight I went to the local Thai restaurant. We have a Thai restaurant out here in the hill country, and while the menu is limited, the food is actually quite good. And nobody that works at the restaurant is Thai. The proprietor of the restaurant's son went to culinary school in Austin, and I guess he studied like Thai shit. So they opened a Thai restaurant kind of in the middle of nowhere here. And I got to say, the food is really good in spite of the limited menu. So typical Mercury Retrograde. I put the order in. They have this little app called Toast. And I probably didn't like click something to make sure the order went all the way through. And so I went down there, and it was like Corvette fucking Sunday. There were like literally like 40 Corvettes in the parking lot. A lot of rich people flashing their Corvettes around the hill country. And so I was talking with the help. You know, I like to do that. I like to talk to the help, especially if the help is kind of interesting. And this young gal was kind of interesting. And I asked her about the Corvettes. I said, so is it like Corvette Sunday here? And she said, oh, they made me so mad the other day. Like yesterday, I think, or Friday, one of the 2 days. It's been like a 3-day weekend with Corvettes out here. I said, why? She says, well, I'm a volunteer firefighter. And there was a 4-alarm fire, and they were all in the way. I'm like, oh, well, that must have been frustrating. So then she tells me this story about this place not far from here. This is just like 4 days ago. The family's in Italy. I had heard this story. I'd either heard it or I read about it in local news. I can't remember where I heard it. But the family was in Italy on vacation. And we had a thunder and lightning storm. And a fucking lightning bolt came down and hit their house. And they went out to respond. It's like a volunteer fire department, like 4 people. Her and her father were on the volunteer fire department. And like I couldn't save the place. So the people are away on vacation in Italy. Can you imagine that? You're in Italy, you're on vacation, you get a phone call. I got some really bad news. Your house was hit by lightning, it was destroyed by a fire. Can you fucking imagine that? Like, and they're probably in a pretty nice part of Italy too. I'm thinking, oh shit. Do we stay here and have a little paradise, a little relaxation, or do we go back home and start dealing with insurance claims? So everything pretty much burned to the ground, right? And I guess the neighbor saved their pickup truck. So they got something out of the deal. The rest of the cars and all the other farm equipment just torched, gone. And she showed me pictures of it. And I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. Like, how old are you? 20. And you're a volunteer firefighter? Yeah, I am. I'm like, oh. And I also, she works at the place. She's the counter girl at the Thai restaurant. And I have another job, and I'm a teller in town. I forget which bank. And you know the Radio Standard? They're actually doing a contest for the best teller, the best of everything, I guess, in Fredericksburg. And she's been nominated for one of the best bank tellers. So she's 20 years old, and she's a bank teller. And on her 21st birthday, she's going to Las Vegas the day after the Super Bowl. They can't afford to go to the Super Bowl, right? So she's turning 21. She's an Aquarian, and she was totally an Aquarian. Like, she's like, that's an Aquarian story. Firefighter so she was telling me that, she's okay when she goes to deal with, people that have been in accidents on the side of the road or whatever. But she always gets scared with fires. And I said, well, hundreds of thousands of years of human fear around fire. It's natural to have fear around fire. I mean, who wouldn't be freaked out, right? You're going to go to a fire, you're going to go fight a fire. Like, that's some deep archetypal stuff going on inside the individual. And then she said, I think about all the things that I did wrong when I was at the fire. I said, well, maybe you can think about all the things that you can do better next time instead of all the things you do wrong. She said, yeah, I kind of like that. It's just a different approach. What can you do better next time? I get it. We learn from our mistakes, and sometimes people, that's how they roll, right? They just never want to make that mistake again. So they frame it in that kind of language. But it was an interesting conversation. Very Aquarian, very quirky. And so I wanted to, it's like, so how do you get your money? Do people donate? I said, well, we have a fish fry. And people go to the fish fry and they buy dinners. When is it? Well, it's on October 14th. Well, of course, that's our event. So I can't go, but I am going to buy a couple of fish dinners to give away because I want to support the local fire department. I mean, think about it. They're not getting paid to go out there and do that shit. So, kudos. I don't know her name, but I will look up the radio standard and I don't vote. I don't go to her bank, but I'll vote for her as a teller. Why not? Anyway, little country talk around these parts out here in the old hill country. Speaking of hill country, we will be gathering together on the weekend of the 13th, 14th, and 15th. And if you haven't signed up for our event, go to robertphoenix.com. We still have a few spots available that are going to be, it's going to be great. We had Mark, my buddy from Cruelty Free Cartoons, on the show on Friday, doing a little bit of his magic. Fantastic. He'll be there. We'll have my friend Shauna Home from Virginia, who is just an absolute dynamo. An Aries. We'll have an Aries on the eclipse. Well, that lunar eclipse with the moon in Aries. So she'll be representing the moon and Aries, since she's a woman and an Aries, right? And she's going to talk about manifestation and the path that she has adapted and learned. She's fantastic, right? She's written 3 books. She's an author, shaman, just a tremendous person. So you're going to learn a lot. I'll be talking about the eclipses, the eclipse path, and where I think all of this is going. I guess we're going to have a Dr. Narco Longo sighting at the event. He plans on being here, so he'll be here. Who else are we going to have? My friend Darlena, who does human design. She's going to be doing human design and the eclipse phase through the human design, which would be totally fascinating. And by the way, she's got a new interview up with Olga Perez. And I've been on Olga's show a couple of times. So check out Olga's podcast. Check out Darlena's latest interview there where she gets into human. I think she gave Olga a live human design reading too, which was probably pretty cool. So Darlena will join us, and Leela LMM, she'll be here. She'll be demonstrating tremor release therapy. I mean, it's going to be a lot. You're going to get a lot out of it. And of course, the major player is going to be the eclipse. And this will be this is going to be eclipse number 2 in the big eclipse cycle, with the 3rd one playing out in April of next year. I think this one is more user-friendly. I'm just saying. The next eclipse is in Aries, and it's coming up from the south. And I think we have some real issues related to the south and that eclipse, which I'll talk about at the event. A lot of you have expressed interest in joining us virtually, and I'm looking into that. We do the Friday Forecast at the event. That's kind of a yearly tradition. But I'm looking at maybe setting up some streams. It will be 4-pay streams. And more than likely, it will be with Shauna, probably my eclipse talk, and maybe our health panel, which we'll have on Sunday. So we have a lot planned. So a lot of you can't make it, and I completely understand why. Because logistically, it's not real easy. I totally get it. So we're going to try to make it available for people. and figure out how to do that. With today's technology, it shouldn't be that hard. But there's always a bit of a learning curve, isn't there? So we're going to do that. That'll happen. And it's coming. It's right around the corner. It's going to be great. It's going to be really great. And I got a little swag lined up for us, which will be cool. And we have our meals and everything. So it's going to every time we've done this, it's been just a tremendous amplification of life force and potentiality. And there's nothing like weird or religious about any of it. It's just really people bringing their spirits together and having this really interesting synergy that takes place. And if you can make it into the hills, I'll give you a visual here on my website where all the information is. All you got to do is call up the hotel, see if they have any rooms, and then sign up. I think we have a few spots left. And this is exactly what we're talking about here, Harvest Moon. I'll make sure there's a link inside of the stream for everybody. Right there. Boy, I wish we could get our hands on, there it is right there, Hill Country Harvest Moon 5. Our 5th year of doing this. I wish we could get this is the end of she's tremendous. Absolutely. And she'll have her books there, and Chris will be there, and a lot of other folks will be there. Yeah. Okay. So just got a little text. Yeah, there's the hotel. This is where we're going to be right here. Eclipse comes in from the 33rd parallel, Oregon, then drops on down. And then the one in August goes from here to here, and it forms an aleph. And there's our guy, Mark Sermacheski of Cruelty Free Tunes. It's actually Cruelty Free Cartoons. And he did a great job on the show on Friday. So you're going to get some of Mark's magic while you're there. You get your own, I like to call them spiritual caricatures. We went shooting shotguns yesterday. Hey, True Note and Aries. We went shotgun shooting yesterday. Did some trap shooting. It's very cool. I was not very good at it at the beginning. Towards the end, I got a little bit better. I realized that breathing was a big part of the whole thing. All right, let's breathe. Let's slow everything down. Right. So we had a hill country weekend for sure. It was like, if you're gonna be here, you may as well take advantage of what's available. Sadly, on another continent. Well, we'll have some streams set up, Maria. We'd love to see you one of these days. I'm still mind blown. That guy is cool as fuck. So calm too. I know, right? Mark is like an avatar. He's like an avatar. He's tremendous. So you'll get the in-person spirit experience with Mr. Mark S. All right, so let's talk about what we're going to talk about tonight. Because prior to everything, prior to the reboot, we're going to get into Keanu Reeves, the Cyberchrist. We're going to look at 2 charts for Keanu Reeves. Both of them are pretty interesting. One is his birth chart, and the other is the birth chart of his character, Mr. Anderson. There's an actual birth date and a place for him. We're going to look at that chart as it relates to the Matrix. There's a lot of high strange around Keanu, and he seems to always show up as a cyber-Christian messiah-like figure in many of his films, even one as humorous as was it Bob and Ted's Excellent Adventure, right? Like, let me just make sure. Bill and Ted, my bad. The Virgo Moon. Even Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. They both play these kind of numbskulls, these fools that wind up saving the universe, right? And Keanu Reeves is half the partnership. So we're going to look at him tonight because I think he's a very interesting character. Astrologically, he's interesting, and culturally, he's quite interesting. So we're going to look at that tonight. We're also, we mentioned the September 23rd chart. I'm going to get into that tonight. And we're going to see if we can, basically shake some of the doom out of that day. Let's see what else we're going to get. We're also going to get into this period of time in the 1960s where Pluto and Uranus were in conjunction with Virgo. So a lot of you who are watching were born during that time. If you were born from basically 1962 to about 1969, you're part of a wide conjunction of Uranus and Pluto in the sign of Virgo. And we've gone here before, but it's a Mercury retrograde. And I want to look at it from another angle that we haven't really particularly looked at. And there's a reason why it spurred my interest, my curiosity. Because a lot of people who do come to me for readings as clients, they wind up, well, a lot of them are born under this conjunction. So I think trying to understand it on a personal level is, I think, an important one. So if you're born during that time, 63 to 69, you're going to want to watch this part of the show. But culturally, there's something really big going on during that time. And I've always known this, but I got tipped off by looking at Keanu Reeves' chart. So we're going to get into that tonight. We're also going to get into chart of the moment. So we have a lot to cover. And let me just go into chat here. Let's see who we have. We got, there's my man, Lewis. What's happening, Lewis Walden? Meow Meow, born in 64, Pluto, Uranus conjunction. There you go. Diana, Summer of Love. 60, it's so weird because 67 and 68 are such different times. Like the ramp up to 67 in 1966 is huge. Like it's not quite at the Summer of Love, but everything is just bubbling beneath the surface. It's a 22 year. It's the year of the fire horse, right? So people are going to be very expressive. It's a huge year. 66 is a huge year. You kind of get a bit of a feel for things around 1965. Things are changing just a little bit. The music is starting to change. The Beatles hit. The Mercy Beat thing happens. We're going into a new phase of rock and roll. Some of these pop groups are starting to show up. People like Gary Puckett in the Union Gap and the Grassroots and the Association. All those groups are starting to kind of constellate a little bit. The Turtles are starting to constellate from Southern California, right? You have the big movement from the Bill Building from New York, and all the songwriters essentially going to Southern California. Everything is happening. LA is the scene, right? So it's a big time, really, really big time. 65 is huge. 66, things are really bubbling. 67, everybody just wants to fall in love with each other. And 68, the revolution is on. So we're going to be looking mostly at 1968 tonight, and particularly as it relates to another period called the French Revolution. And why am I bringing up the French Revolution? Well, it's because Keanu Reeves is born on the same day as the official day of the French Revolution. So there we go. There's our first sync of the night. And when we look at Neo and the Matrix, right? What is he? He is a revolutionary. He is fighting against the machine. That's really his role. He's leading the revolution. So it's interesting that he shares the same birthday as the official French Revolution back in the 1790s. 1968, I was 12. I was 8. And I was feeling the 60s for sure. HEB sparkling water. Let's get into Gary Lewis and the Playboys. Judy in Disguise. Let's see. I was 5. Dolly has braces. Hi, Dolly. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Let's do some shout outs here, which I like to do. Hi, Diana. Good to see you. Catherine Rosen. We got a Pisces sandwich there. There she is, the lovely and talented one, Dr. Joan S. and Catherine Rosen. A couple of Pisces. Diana, I don't know what your sign is, but you're part of a fish sandwich there. Curtis Moonflower. What's happening, Curtis? Good to see you here. Tom Jordan, my man TJ. Always a pleasure to have you here. Kabuki Theater. What's up, Bo? CC Jones. The fantastic one. Finca Feliz. Lynn, you were great on Friday. Lynn, you know I love you. The unintentional comedy scale was off the charts on Friday. Thank you for just being there and letting it happen. And you got a good picture. I'll send you your picture. So, and by the way, thank you for the coffee, Lynn. We had some this morning. It's delicious. Bill and Ted, thank you, Kelly. I don't know why I said Bob and Ted. Should know better. Veronica's Barn is here. Recovering from a Don Draper dad moment, sort of. My man Ryan, what's going on, brother? The president of the International Introspective Woodworkers Union of the World, checking in with us. Mary Lee is here. Something strange is afoot at the Circle K. Peter Bayonne says, I'm going to put this up. This is interesting. I thought the walk-in guy was interesting, a bit scattered. Need to keep him on track for his complete story. I did my best, Peter. Right? I did my best without going full-on surgical 60 minutes on him. But he was interesting. And I think there's a lot more both to him and the story, actually. So thanks for listening. And he's actually a really cool guy. That's the other side of it. Super cool guy, super nice guy. Let's see. Whimsical Farm Girl says, oh, I love him. I'm assuming she's referring to Keanu. Let's see. No sleep. Feeling collective, everything. Well, Russell Gill says he's my favorite. Point Blank is a great movie. Wasn't John Milius involved in that? I think Milius might have written part of Point Blank. Way better than the remake. Way better than the remake. He played quarterback in high school, but then he played quarterback for the Replacements. Remember that? Shane Falco. My favorite scene in that movie is where he's like really Piscean. He starts the movie sort of, if this is the Replacements with Keanu Reeves. He starts the movie underneath a boat in the harbor in Boston, and he's scraping barnacles off the bottom of the boat, right? That is so Piscean, right? And then he emerges. I mean, literally, this is the start of the movie. Then he emerges from this kind of, collective diaspora, which is really what the ocean is. And he gets up on the boat, and eventually he makes it to what would be, I guess, considered either the New England Patriots, or that might have been the Washington Red. I think it might have been the Redskins. Some made-up fucking team. It was either Boston or Washington. Could have been in the harbor in Baltimore. But it starts off with him literally scraping the barnacles, in this Piscean underworld, and he emerges from it, right? And then he manifests his form onto the land, so he can go out and be the guy. All right, who else do we have? Be excellent to each other. Yes. Stoner Christ. That's another version. Let's see. Who else do we have? You bet, Diana. S. Lee, Keanu's babysitter, Alice Cooper. Oh, interesting. Alice Cooper is a fascinating guy. He's an Aquarian. He claims to be a big-time Christian. He's been married to the same woman all his life. The only mistress Alice Cooper's ever had is the bottle, right? Let's see, who else do we have? Cynthia Cluth. Yes, I have that as well. Mars and MC exact, Pluto and Virgo, Sun Ascendant, First House Sagittarius. That's a lot. Rama Lama. Hey, I'm watching, but AFK. What does AFK mean? Let's see, who else do we have? Terry Catterley's here. Hi, Terry. Good. Yeah, look at that. We got July 66, April 68, 67, 67. This will be a good show for you. Be a good show for you on a personal level. Cindy, yes, we got some rain too. Wow. Congratulations. Susan Chappelle, 68. Cynthia Cluth, Firehorse here. Look at that. You guys are representing. Bill Smith, 68. That's me, all in the 12th house, 1965. 65, like the Chiron Saturn conjunctions in Pisces and then a little bit later in Aries, those are tough conjunctions, especially the Chiron Saturn ones. That doesn't come along very often. So if you're born in 1965, you likely have the Chiron Saturn conjunction. Those that's kind of challenging, but the spiritual potential is really off the charts. Let's see. Yes, I've been watching documentary. Spot on, Robert. Cool, thank you. The Beatles, well, the Beatles really hit. Like their first record in this country is released when JFK's, it's not in this country, it's in Canada. And they release it right after JFK is killed. There's like this weird thing with the Beatles and JFK and RFK. Like there's like a lot of high strange with their releases and timing and stuff like that, which we've gotten into before. But I think by 65, what are we talking about? Help, right? You're getting into the movie Help, weird kind of cinema verite, some, early black and white, like surrealism, pop art, not quite psychedelic yet. That's where things were in 65. Help. Like things are starting to get a little nutty, right? Little nutty. Firehorse, that sounds cool, doesn't it? Firehorse. They used to kill the Firehorse girls back in China. If you had a daughter and you're born in the year of the Firehorse, your Firehorse was going down to the river or the lake or the pond. How do you Firehorse ladies feel about that? I've met a lot of Firehorse women. I've never had a problem with them. But that was one of those celestial superstitions that the Chinese apparently live by. Like let's drown the Firehorse. The Beach Boys were definitely starting to turn right around 1966, for sure. Linda C., I was born in 1960, Uranus and Pluto. There you go. You guys are here. You're representing tonight. Where else are we? Dolly has braces. I was 5. What's going on, Robin? Good to see you. Love Keanu Reeves movies. I heard he was super sweet too. I feel good supporting. Not a lot of scandal around Keanu Reeves, right? I mean, if you think about Hollywood, and right now, Russell Brand is starting to go through a scandal. How do you feel about Russell Brand? Russell Brand has he's got a very interesting chart. Like when you look at his chart, you can see him in his chart. He's fucking brilliant. Like he's brilliant. Personally, I'm not the biggest Brand fan. Just me, right? Like there's a lot of Gemini duality going on there. Just saying. A lot of Gemini duality. I think he's funny. I think he's charismatic. I think he's kind of a system buster. And I've also never trusted him. Just me. And now it looks like he's going to get Me Too'd. At least that's what they're gunning for. Look, he pals around with Yuval Noah Harari. Maybe he's just trying to unconditionally love him. Maybe that's the project. I'll unconditionally love him, and I'll like the weird super freak geek that wants to hack humanity. I'll love all that right out of him because he's small, he's frail, he looks like an alien, he's probably been horribly rejected. I'll unconditionally love him and give him a hug. I don't know if that's how you work with the guy. Yuval Noah Harari, not Russell Brand. But there's kind of, I don't know, there's something interesting. I wouldn't say similar, but Russell Brand has that kind of, that sort of long hair and kind of new agey social media, born again out of his alcohol addiction, Christ-like identity. And so does Keanu Reeves, but no scandal with Keanu Reeves. Not to my knowledge. I don't know if he's straight. I don't know if he's gay. Frankly, I don't care. He's made some entertaining movies. He's managed to keep a low profile. Seems like he likes to have fun. I thought his rock band, Dog Star, was very silly, and he took it very seriously. And I saw him. He was on, I think, was it Arsenio Hall, or I forget who he was with. Maybe it was Letterman. I forget. But he was going on and on and on about the Dogon and Nomo and Sirius B. He was like really fucking excited. He was very excited that they chose this name. He was all into the mythology of it. It's like, you go, Keanu. You're getting a little esoterically red-pilled here. Diana says Cuba was on fire in 1967. Jay Schaefer, hey, checking in. We're going to be seeing you soon, Jay. Looking forward to it. User 13 is here. Who else do we have? Curious about the 23rd chart. So am I. Haven't really looked at it. We're going to do it in real time together. So your curiosity and my curiosity might be quelled simultaneously. Let's see. Who else do we have? I left Cuba in 1970. I was 3. Who's that woman on The View? She was talking about Cuban immigrants and the boat people. Anna, what's her name? She's no fucking boat person. Her father got kicked out by Castro. So she came after that. Her father had ties to the military-industrial complex, was selling weapons and all this other shit, right? But they were talking about the migrant crisis in New York, which, by the way, is Neptune in Pisces and Saturn in Pisces. We've been talking about this for a long time. And she was saying, oh, wow, we know what it was like in Miami because we got all of Castro's boat people. I'm from Cuba. I'm an immigrant from Cuba. You're not one of those immigrants, okay? We talked about that last week. Those immigrants, they were the fucking criminals that Castro, he just flushed them. Yeah, go find some boats. Go find some inflatable rafts. Put them out there. Let the Coast Guard pick them up. Right? That's what Scarface is all about. That's what the movie Scarface is all about. It's Al Pacino doing Scarface, and basically he's a Cuban refugee, right? He was a bad seed that got spit out by Castro, and he wasn't the only one. And that's when you have all the cocaine and shit going on in Miami and Miami Vice. I mean, it's a train wreck. But to say that she was a Cuban immigrant and somehow link it to the boat people is very disingenuous. Shame on you, Anna. Shame on you. Sandra Ellison from Arizona. Hello, Sandra. Kelly and the kids. Astro Emotion, what's going on? Astro Emotion 2023. AKA Sam. All Aquarians think they're a walk-in. We should have a poll. If you're an Aquarian, do you think you're... I think people that have Chiron and Taurus often feel like walk-ins. Hi, Holly. Good to see you. You enjoyed it. I'll tell you how I met. It's really interesting. I was going through a very dark time. It's when Saturn was going through my 12th house in Scorpio. And was I getting in touch with my shadow? Holy fucking shit. Right? I think I've told this story before. And I was just so off. Everything about my spirit or my character was off because it was a reckoning. That's what happens with Saturn going through the 12th house. And if it's in Scorpio, you better pay attention because you get to see what you did with all that Scorpio shit for the last 30 years, right? That's how Scorpio works. So I'm just going through this thing, man. And a lot of people didn't know what I was going through. and I barely knew Kenneth. Like we'd had some connection on Facebook. This is like circa shit. Must have been 2014, I think. It was around 2014. And I remember Kenneth reaching out to me, and he was not happy. Like, I don't know, again, we never really talked about this. But I remember like, oh my God, I'm letting this guy down. And I'm not even sure what I was doing, except inside of myself, I was burning. And he kind of came through that line and that wire. And I'm like, oh, who are you? And why are you sharing this with me? Like, I really didn't know him. And the next thing you know, I find myself taking a call from him. And it's like, he's like hitting on all these things I'm going through. And not in a real warm and fuzzy way either, by the way. So I've always remembered that about Kenneth. And I've always respected that. That's why I had him on the show. Because I felt like there was some unerring connection with him that I could not plausibly like map out. Like it was just part of the internet, right? The internet. And I thought to myself, if this guy cared enough to reach out to me, and wasn't even in a real kind of a, like, I think ultimately it was loving, but I think it was more along the lines of kind of, calling me out a little bit on something that he didn't even really know about. So I'm like, that intrigued me. So when he told me a couple of weeks ago about it, I thought, well, let's get you on the show and let's see what that's all about. And I'm convinced that something did happen to him. Like he merged with something during that time. I don't know if it was a walk in, a walkout, a kind of a spirit bond that took place. I don't know. But clearly there was a before and after, and that his life was different after this event. So I'm glad you liked the show on Friday. The 60-year cycle. That's right. Due to that 60-year cycle, the fire horse. I couldn't pay attention to the walking guy. See, he's, he's not a stoner. He's I think Kenneth is 70, and he's a horse person, actually, Veronica, believe it or not. He's a cowboy. He's a cowboy. But that's just how he is. He's not a stoner guy. Did great, just need more time. Maybe we'll have him back on, Peter. I think you're right. Maybe we'll do a part. Maybe I'll bring him on the Sunday night show, because one of the things he wanted me to do was to look at that event, because he knows the exact time and everything as it relates to his chart. So maybe we'll bring him back on the Sunday night show. In 23 Terminator Matrix movies are connected. Point Break was cool. I like Point Break. I didn't like the second Point Break. I don't like remakes. Why? If something is really good, why fuck with it? I know why. The studios want to do it and they want to make money. Are most Aquarius from the future? Feels that way. Audio is excellent. Thank you. You would know. This guy would know. He would know. Stagehand, guitar tech du jour. My man W.C. Ray, he would know. Let's see. They shouldn't have ever tried to redo that movie. I agree. This is funny from Curtis. Walk-ins unite. Think they have a union? The walk-ins should unionize, just like what's going on with UAW. Let's see. Written by a black woman. The Connection. Yep, she said that she didn't get. But I tell you though, there's a movie, and I've talked about this before. There's a movie that predates The Matrix that is pretty Matrixy, and it's called World on a Wire, and it was directed by Wim Wenders. It's a 9-hour German TV presentation, and that has very Matrix-like themes. So these ideas, and the Matrix is all about Gnosticism and a fallen world and a reset, right? I mean, that's really the Matrix is very, and even to the point where you have the oracle. And I've been kind of on this path around the Black Madonna as this symbol of Sophia, but not like, I think the Black Madonna has been used as a symbol for Sophia because the Black Madonna rules the earth, right? So it's an inverted pyramid. And then Mary is the Queen of Heaven. And so you have the other pyramid. And so you put the two together, and then you have the Magan Star, which a certain country has appropriated for their flag. But if you go into things like Marx, and how, if you listen to James Lindsay, and I think James totally has a point on this, that Marx is a Gnostic, and that communism is an economic form of Gnosticism. So when you look at who's being promoted in today's culture and society, you've got Oprah, and you've got Michelle, and you've got Kamala, and you have Karine Jean-Pierre. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. Right? There's just it really, these women are the face of media. They're the face of entertainment. We talked about Beyonce. Beyonce is the Black Madonna. Beyonce is the Virgo, is the Black Madonna. So they're using this symbol, whether it's fair or not, of the Black Madonna as Sophia, and they're using the climate crisis as the correction. That is the Sophia correction, is the climate crisis. They have to change the biosphere. They have to remove 0.3% of the carbon. So whether or not you are a true dyed-in-the-wool Gnostic, that is somebody who embraces that cosmology, right? Or you're somebody who can look at it from another perspective and say, well, this is a counterfeit version of Gnosticism, right? And if you think about this, and you look at these so-called rituals that go on all the time, like Lahaina as being a ritual, or 9/11 as being a ritual, right? And there's plenty of them. Like that these rituals, and what they do is they fire the event grid, and that they keep people in a trance, and they keep the loosh machine pumping. At least from the perspective of a crisis, it's exactly what happens. People emote. People are scared. People are fearful. People are angry, right? And so you have the loosh collectors just sucking it all up. What are they doing? Are they in the process of creating another world with our energy? Right. So you look at these figures, which we've talked about. I talked about it the other day. I got a bunch of hits on Twitter. And it's like, it's a cult. It's not diversity. It's a cult. And they have taken a version of a member from that community. And even the latest ad that came out during the month of Virgo. You guys have seen the ad, right? I'm not going to play it here because they may shut it down. But it's the Apple ad. And what is Apple? It's the fall, right? And there is the fall from Eden. And there is theoretically the Sophia fall, where there is the mistake, the error, and there has to be a correction. And so Apple comes out with this new commercial where they have Mother Earth, who is played by none other than a Black woman. And she looks like what? She looks like a combination of Venus of Willendorf and the Black Madonna. This is who she is, right? So now the Black Madonna is Mother Nature. Mother Nature is Black. And, pardon my language here, but she brought along her fag hag. And, he was there, keeping score with everything. This is exactly what they're selling you. And Mother Nature is there, right? The personification of the Black Madonna, and the commercial was released during the month of Virgo. Keep that in mind. And the whole idea is that there needs to be a correction. So maybe they're taking you down a counterfeit Gnostic path, just like they take you down a counterfeit Christian path. And they take you down all these counterfeit paths. So it's really not diversity, it's a cult. It's a total cult. And this is no slight to any of those women, or any of the women that maybe they're not, maybe some of them aren't even women, according to Melissa Rivers, who just came out and said that the you-know-who's killed their mother. Very, very upfront. She's not beating around the bush, right? And even when you go, speaking of Bush, when you look at George Bush and his relationship with Michelle Obama, it's weird, right? It's very weird. And astrologically, they're in opposition with each other. George Bush is a Cancer and Michelle Obama is a Capricorn. So they kind of complete a circuit there. But, she's like patting him on the head like he's a little fucking house pet or something, right? So there's something he knows about Michelle Obama in a way that other people don't know, right? Like, just go, I'm not going to play it here, but go back and look. It's weird, like he doesn't do that for any other, didn't do it with Hillary, didn't do it with Rosalind Carter. Nope. Clearly, no Melania love. No, didn't do it with Jill, but Michelle, man, it's like he's her mascot or something. That tells you something. There's a tell there. So it's really been this ramping up, right? This ramping up phase. And anyway, it's just a little bit of a detour there. But I think it's interesting that they released the Apple commercial in Virgo, because that's what they're doing. They're promoting a counterfeit Gnosticism. And it's the same Gnosticism that was created by people like Karl Marx and Michel Foucault. This is exactly what they're doing. And then they need the correction. Climate change is the correction. And you just saw the commercial with Mother Nature walking around scolding everybody. What did Cindy say here? Robert did his best without being a control freak. Cowboy's the kind of guy you're going to talk a long time together. I agree. I agree. I really like Kenneth and I respect Kenneth. And somebody in the chat said, he's talking about UFOs. This is bullshit. Right? Like, I understand where people are coming from. And now we're so polarized. We're so polarized because, space is fake. UFOs aren't real. Roswell never existed. We weren't made by space gods. I mean, you just go down the path. Kennedy wasn't killed. He faked his death along with David Bowie and Elvis, and together they're the White Hat team, right? You can just run all these programs, all of them, and you're going to find somebody who is not going to agree with you. This is the way it is. It's the way it is. Here's where I'm at. Stick around, maybe listen to the guy. You might actually learn something. Put your bias away for a moment. Spend about 30 minutes, 40 minutes, listen in. And if it's still not ringing your bell, just leave. I mean, you can say whatever you want. That's fine, right? I'm not here to be a censor in that regard, but I was also pretty sensitive to, let him tell a story. Look, if I didn't like Kenneth and respect Kenneth, and I felt like I was getting a big pile of horse manure, I would have said something. And I didn't feel that. He had an experience, and I wanted to see where his experience took him and where it was going to take us. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Let's see. I had a reading with a kid. He's not a kid. He was such a cool guy. He was, this is what I love about astrology. His mother got him a reading, and we had kind of a miscommunication on Friday. Not this Friday, previous Friday. So we didn't meet. And I got a text from his mom. I said, I sent him a text, email, and maybe he didn't get it or something. So we re-racked for Friday. And it's always interesting when I do this with video. It's kind of like chat roulette. And when you click on that camera, you never know who you're going to get or what they're going to look like, right? So the immediate thing that I have to do is like I have to really limit my bias filter, right? I have to limit the bias filter. It's like Okay, because you get a lot of information when you look at people. And you're not in their biofield, but you kind of are. Like, it is a non-local experience. So he pops in. I'm like, okay, this is going to be an interesting reading. I could tell already. I loved this kid. He was awesome. Double Leo, right? Double Leo, Mercury and Leo, big eighth house. I'm sorry, 11th house. I'm not going to get into other specifics, but I love this kid. And it makes my job meaningful when I can sit down and have a meaningful conversation with somebody. And we can look at their chart and piece things out and pull things out and tease them out. And at the end, right, they're not feeling better, right? They're not feeling better because I, blew sunshine up their ass. But they're feeling better because they had a reasonable conversation with some touch points on the map of their life. And he said, hey, I really appreciated the conversation. It was really interesting. That's it. Right? That's it. That's what I'm looking for, to connect, right, in that exchange with another person. And he's a Gen Zer. And all the Gen Zers I've run across personally have been great. Young gal tonight, Gen Zer, right? First responder, Aquarian. All right, let's see what else we have. There's a YouTube video I just came across about that topic. Really? Interesting. Let's see, who else do we have? User 13, I wanted to marry Alice after seeing him on The Muppet Show when I was 7. Grandpa, I love Alice Cooper. I think he's great. Married the same woman his entire life. Loves his kids, loves his parents. His father was a minister. Still plays golf. God bless you, Alice Cooper. My hub has always idolized Slice Cooper. I guess Slice is Alice. Funny how you like the music. We're born from the same period. We're in that same milieu. This is an interesting comment. All our lives were for this one, even if they're all happening now. I would agree with that. I would totally agree with that, Bones. I mean, think about it. We're all here together through this medium that connects each and every. Think of all the other streams that are going on live right now, right? Because there are streams happening all over the fucking planet. And if not in this moment, later tonight or tomorrow or the next day, we have never been so connected in our memory. There may have been other times where we've been really connected in a different kind of way. Oh, by the way, John Levi, new video out. Looks great. And he's got a book coming out. And somebody's helped him out and really focusing and honing in on these buildings in San Francisco, which he's talked about and many of which I've visited. So go hang out, support John, do a pre-order with his book. It looks fantastic. But yeah, you're right. Here we are. We're all happening simultaneously. Like, this is a really unique and special time. And I'm having conversations with people now that I wasn't having 10 years ago. The conversations we're having now are like, well, you don't need much backstory, do you? No, you don't need much back. We can just get right to it. And we may disagree on some of the details, but I think at the heart of the matter, there's one thing that we all share, is that we're waking up. Now, whether you wake up and they herd you into another dream or another trance or another copy of a bad world, that's a different discussion, right? That we're not quite there yet. We'll have that discussion at some point. But we're waking up. Make no mistake about it. And you can see that we're waking up by how much control is trying to be exerted, especially in the realm of speech and the sharing of ideas. Huge amounts of control. All right, let's see who else we have here. Kathy S. met Alice a few times. He's extremely smart. He seems like a nice guy. You know, he doesn't strike me as a big fucking egomaniac. Oh, Alice Cooper loses cosmetics deal after remarks about trans people. He can lose the deal. He can afford losing the deal. My man Steve is here. Kabuki said, I used to run into Alice at the Circle K. Nice guy. There you go. We seem to have a bit of a consensus that Alice Cooper is a nice guy. Let's see. Napoleon in Ted's Journey was my boyfriend for a while. The short guy in the bathtub. How about that? Catherine Rosen, sneaky. She's got some sneaky celeb cred there. He is a Christian. Alice Cooper, he talks about it. I don't disbelieve Alice Cooper. My oldest sister was born in 65. She has huge self-doubt issue. That Chiron-Saturn conjunction in Pisces. You know who has that is Jimmy Dore. He has it. And you can get, it's really fascinating watching Jimmy Dore's evolution. Because he went from a fucking liberal on the Young Turks to becoming somebody who's actually played Trump videos and not completely barbecued him. Like he had Cornel West on his show and he couldn't support Cornel West as much as he wanted to. He said it was 45 of the most difficult minutes of his life because he wanted to support Cornel West. That's the Saturn-Chiron conjunction. You know, you're kind of going through this kind of ongoing crucifixion, right? But then you get the resurrection part too. And it's like letting go, new form, letting go, new form, letting go. And I think Jimmy Dore has become, in his own way, a bit of a heretic because he walked away from the church of the left and the church of the Democratic Party. He's kind of walked away from it. So he fits the bill. Let's see. Keanu dated David Geffen for years. Wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Like, a lot of people dated David Geffen. But that wouldn't be a scandal, though, would it? Now it's almost like a badge of honor. Joni Mitchell dated David Geffen. Like, David Geffen dated whoever would give him power in a lot of ways, right? That was his thing. Probably still is. Yeah, I'm not sure what Keanu's thing is. But what I do know is he doesn't have a house with a white picket fence and 4 or 5 kids, at least that we know. Let's see. So Lewis, 1981, the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in Libra. Is that right? Together in Libra. Squaring my sun in Leo in the first house. Oh, interesting. So your Saturn-Jupiter must be late, right? Like almost Scorpio, and you have an early Leo sun. A decade late for all the fun. Bones, we're glad you're here. Hopefully we'll be around for another decade. I keep thinking about that. I keep thinking about how long I'm going to do this. You get to a certain age, you start thinking about it. You know, the minute you start to think about retiring is when things go south. And I'm not ready to do that yet. Let's see. What else do we have? Sarah Matheson, I'm from 1965, have Chiron conjunct Saturn. You know what that's really good for as well? Helping other people. Helping other, like Chiron keeps your wound wide open, right? It's kind of like the wound of Longinus. It doesn't heal in some ways. You know, it just doesn't heal in some ways. So you have that. And Saturn brings you new form, new authority. The ultimate with people, I'll tell you what the ultimate was with people with Chiron Saturn conjunction, they falling out with the church. Easy. That was easy. The degree of the falling out of the church was always the next layer of the story, right? So with Chiron, here's a little lesson for you. With Chiron, when people are not into their Chiron, like, I'm just not into this, they go to the other sign. So in this case, the other sign would be Virgo. So you would have people from the church who would fall out from the church in faith, and then go to the other sign, Virgo, and they'd be like, yeah, science good, right? Because Virgo would kind of represent that. It'd be all rational, rationalistic, and logical, like, fuck that. Fuck that fairy tale shit. Fuck that guy in the sky shit. I'm going over here for Virgo. We're going to get receipts. This shit's going to add up. You do that for a while, but you can't hang out there because you got to deal with Chiron, right? It's kind of like, wow, this really crazy thing happened to me. I can't explain it. I can't explain it. All my models, I can't explain the crazy thing that happened to me. I've gone down this alley and I've done all the numbers and the odds are astronomical, right? That's what happens. And all of a sudden you're sucked back in. It's like, man, I thought I'd burn my passport. No, now you got to get back in. It's like, okay, there's a here, there's a there. I just have to do it on my own terms. That's ultimately what happens with the people that were going through their Chiron return, and then later their Saturn return, because some of them weren't all Chiron. Chiron and Pisces had happened before that. Really shows up in 1960, right? Shows up in my birth year, goes retrograde. I catch the Chiron in Aquarius, which has its own thing. It was retrograde. And then it came back around again into Pisces. And so really from like late 60s, 61, Chiron's in Pisces. And it's people born during that time they're heretics. That's your wound. Religion is your wound, right? Religion is your wound. Sometimes drugs are your wound. Sometimes they go hand in hand. But then you have to have your own ultimate basis of faith in your life. And then you figure it out. And then Saturn is the rejection of the authority, the rejection of the priest or the family or the system that you inherited. And eventually you've got to come back. And during that time, I was telling people, you're probably going to come back to your faith. A lot of them were Catholic and they did. Or they went down the Orthodox path and said, oh yeah, I'm a Greek Orthodox now because it speaks to me. They were looking in a world of subjectivity. They were looking for spiritual absolutes because their spiritual absolutes failed them because they didn't have their own relationship with it. So they jumped ship and a lot of them went to the other sign, which is Virgo. And then they came back because they found that things were too subjective in some ways. So they needed more spiritual. And I don't think there's anything wrong with spiritual absolutism. Like one of the reasons why the world is so fucked up is because people can't even fucking follow the 10 Commandments. Right? You follow the 10 Commandments and the Psalms of Christ, you're good. Right? You just don't fuck around with other people's wives. Right? Just don't do it. I'll tell you, this true confession time. I didn't always do it, but when I did do it way back in the day, boy, did I feel like shit. I felt very guilty. It's like there was some dude at home, right, that was having a different kind of reality than I was. I didn't like it. And in fact, I had to leave some people because of that. I couldn't deal with the conscience part. Especially one day I had to go meet the guy. And that was hard. It was like they were separated, but they were still married. I'm like, this is a little TMI for me. Like some people would get into it, be like a kind of a power trip. I mean, that was not a power trip for me. It was really uncomfortable because I actually liked the guy. And his wife was a horse person. Let's just say she was leaving the ranch. Man, she really left the ranch too. She wound up with she was hardcore. She wound up hanging out with some trans person. I mean, that's how far she left the ranch ultimately. She was, it was a really trippy. I had a trippy experience with this person. Like really very trippy. Like the trippy kind of experience that like, okay, we're connected here in some way, but I'm not sure how, and I'm not sure what it looks like. Right? It was just odd, but certainly not in that way. Don't fuck around. So those are really like mild spiritual absolutes. But that's one of the reasons why we're in such a huge shitstorm. because people don't understand that there's consequences for their actions. There are deep ramifications, deep spiritual consequences for your actions. You may not think it, but there are. That doesn't mean you have to go around being a goody fucking two-shoe either. Right? Oh, look how good I am. Right? No, there are consequences for doing things that cross lines, and you know that you're crossing those lines. That's all part of your record. What do you have here? Right? It's part of your record. Going back to the Saturn transit of Scorpio in my 12th house, when that happened, circa 2013. I think it was actually October 2012 when it started. 3 years of that. 3 years. Right? And there was that period of 2012 to 2013. It was really 2013. I was in hell with Saturn and Pluto. Saturn going through my 12th house in Scorpio. I was in hell. You know why? Because Saturn's 30-year cycles. And that Saturn transit of the 12th house, talked about it on here before, it along with the 8th house transit, those are the two biggies. 4th house, there's some meat on the bones with the 4th house. But it's nothing like the other two. So I was dealing with what I did with transiting Pluto and Scorpio on my ascendant during the 90s. Because I had some things happen to me during that time that were very powerful and very supernatural. And some of which I did good things with, and some of which I did some things that character-wise were probably not in my best interest. Right? So some of that behavior kind of stayed with me. It was sort of like, when you do a cleanse and you don't get the final parasites or whatever, they still stick around and begin to wreak havoc. So those little dark corners that I didn't clear up were with me. Trigger events, and I was in hell. I never want to go back to that place again. Never. That was Saturn through the 12th. That was for me in Scorpio. It took me to the underworld. And it was a huge teacher. Huge teacher. And even after all that, it took me a few other knocks on the noggin to kind of get the lessons. Right? So, where were we? We're talking about spiritual absolutes. I think there are some. And I think there are times when, it's like thou shalt not kill. Well, if somebody's coming into your house and is going to rape and kill your wife and children and your kids, I think that there's a different coda for that. I do. You're protecting your family. I think there's a different version of that. Maybe I'll go through them some other time, and I'll come up with my asterisk for the 12 commandments, right? All right, we just got it. Okay. All right, I think we're good, right? We got to do a lot of prelude stuff, but it was good stuff. Why don't we look at where we are now? I talked about the past. Let's talk about where we are now. We'll get into the chart of the moment. Let's see if we can do this. Hold on. Let's see where we are. Oh, this is weird. Total fucking Mercury retrograde setting. Let's do this. I just had some weird stuff with astro.com tonight. It's like I was looking at, okay, this is a true story. I was looking at the chart, put together the chart for Mr. Anderson, Keanu's character from The Matrix. And it was a blank chart. It was weird. And I kept changing everything. Let me try this. Let me do this. Let me change this. Eventually, I had to go to another browser, which worked, but I couldn't change anything. So, Mr. Anderson had a blank chart. It's kind of like that scene in Jacob's Ladder. Let me do this. It's that scene in Jacob's Ladder where, where are we? Hold on. All right, let's do this one. Where the fortune teller is looking at, I gotta do this. Just redo this whole thing. Was looking at Tim Robbins, and she's reading his fortune on the stairs. And she looks and she says, "Honey, you don't have a fortune." And his hands have like no lines on the palm, right? Like it's one of those creepy moments. Here we go. Okay. We're in the chart of the moment here. I just decided to go in and just go for it instead of just picking it up on the screen from astro.com. All right, here we go. Bada bing. Get everything right? Yes, yes, yes. Coming up on it. So we're in the future now. All right, let's take a look at where we are. The moon, well, it's right there, 27 Libra. So tomorrow when you wake up, you're going to be dealing with the Scorpio moon. It's intense. Scorpio moon is intense. Anytime you wake up with the Scorpio moon on Monday, it's even better if it's raining. That'll really complete the picture, wouldn't it? Oh, we got a moon Pluto square. Ah, that's interesting. I think I've experienced a little of that today. I think I had a little dose of that moon Pluto square. I know what that feels like. It's an interesting square. What do you do with it? This is when emotionally, right? Like you're trying to find some balance here with the moon. Trying to find something that's fair. And then Pluto comes in and basically says, fairness, good luck with that. Good luck with being fair. Right? This is the energy that's in the air right now. And it's very interesting. Very interesting. Now, tomorrow, the moon will be in Scorpio. And there are things that happen sometimes when the moon is in Scorpio. They're very quiet. And doesn't say a whole lot, right? That's the mood for tomorrow. Quiet, not say a whole lot. Deal with your emotions. Some of those emotions might be a bit turgid. Sometimes moon in Scorpio can often feel like, well, life or death. Thumbs up or thumbs down. Rome seems to be a thing now, right? Everybody's thinking about Rome, talking about Rome. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I was watching the movie Greed the other night with Steve Coogan. Thanks to my good buddy Johnny who recommended it. It is a movie. I think it's interesting. I don't agree with all the movie, but I do like Michael Winterbottom. I think he's a very good director. He does a good job at the movie. I love Steve Coogan. And there's a scene at the end where they recreate Rome. I thought it was timely since everybody's talking about Rome. But tomorrow is a day where emotions run very deep. And there's some intensity. That's like Clint Eastwood walking into town. Moon Scorpio, right? Doesn't say a whole lot. The moon is also in opposition here because we're dealing with the nodes as well. Look at that, right? So a month from now, we got the eclipse happening. It's going to be a banger, as the kids say. A banger. Full moon in Libra in Aries. That's our weekend here in the Hill Country. So when the moon is conjunct the South, it can be kind of vulnerable. You know, people are vulnerable emotionally with the moon South Node conjunction. And on the other side, when I say, you know, you're talking about things like your privacy, right? You know, in Libra, being fair and balanced, and being fair and balanced with whatever you're feeling or expressing whatever you're feeling, right? There's like that South Node there is vulnerable. It's like a back door in some ways. You know, so my feeling here is that, you know, you should probably be aware of what you're sharing and demanding in terms of fairness, especially when the moon moves into Scorpio. This is one of those moments in time where it's like, wow, we're coming off the South Node. It's got a cross Ceres. Ceres there is really interesting because, you know, we talked about this on Thursday, and 3 of the asteroids have all changed signs. So we have Vesta at 1, Cancer. We have Pallas at 2, Virgo. And we have Ceres at 1, Scorpio. Juno is still hanging out, right? So where's Juno? In Leo, conjunct Venus. So these are major changes. You know, what does Ceres and Scorpio mean? You know, Ceres is the great nurturer. It's the mother, right? Not only that, but it's a shepherd. It's the shepherd staff. And the shepherd tends to its flock, which is also a form of nurturing. So what are we nurturing here? We're nurturing boundaries. That's what Scorpio is really good at. Scorpio and Taurus are good about boundaries. Taurus, this is mine. This is mine. This is not yours, right? I'm being a little over simplifying, but that's how Taurus works. Scorpio is subtle. It's not about this is mine and it's not yours. Scorpio is, there's a line that you've just crossed. There's a gray area here that you've just crossed. And it's very black and white. It's about defining boundaries. And that's what Ceres and Scorpio is supposed to do. It's supposed to define boundaries. You see this? Yes, you're a good neighbor. Why are you a good neighbor? Because you respect my property line. That's our property line. And you respect my property line. That's what makes you a good neighbor. It makes me a good neighbor. I don't go over into your yard and take a dump. You don't come over to my yard and take a dump. Those are boundaries. Sometimes there are fences there. I've been on the East Coast. I don't know where fucking people's backyards end. Like, to me, that always blew my mind about the East Coast. So here's a house, a bunch of green stuff. Oh, here's another house and a bunch of green stuff. And another house and a bunch of green stuff. It's like, well, where's your property line? Well, you see that tree right there? You see that ash tree? That ash tree coming straight out to the road. That's our property line. Really? Yep. Do they know that? They absolutely know where that ash tree is. And so even though they don't have a fence, they know where the property line is. That is Scorpio. Scorpio defines boundaries, even boundaries that you cannot see. And so Ceres here is around to help you define those boundaries. And here comes the moon coming in, right? Scorpio on Monday. Boy, if you have kids and you're taking them to school tomorrow and they bring home some funky ass homework, I pity the school. I pity the school teachers. I pity the school board. If you're listening out there and you're part of some satanic school board, you may want to hold those materials for about a week. Just saying, because if you let them go, guess what's going to happen? People are not going to be very happy at all. I think this is a very intense Scorpio moon. I mean, we're also talking about lunar things, our home, our property, our ability to make our house payment. Notice I didn't use the word mortgage. It's a bad word. It is a bad word. Mortgage is death, right? It's a death contract. But people want to pay their houses or their rent or whatever, right? This is a very hard time. Super hard time. And now we got this moon coming in here, Scorpio, Ceres. People aren't fucking around. They are not messing around. We're getting to this point, right? The credit cards for individuals are at an all-time high. And now they're starting to take away credit lines for small, middle to small business. The credit lines are going away, and people are thinking, how the fuck am I going to live? Right? Here's your moon in Scorpio on Monday, conjunct Ceres. Well, that'll lead to some interesting fixes, right? You got to get real crafty with Scorpio. Real crafty. Let's see, Mars is in Libra. Didn't AOC put her foot in her mouth again recently? I think she did. I think she's going through her Mars in Libra return. Her Mars is at the same degree as the progressed USA Mars. I can't believe that. I mean, that is a tale for astrology. A tale for another show. Let's look at Pallas. Pallas just went into Virgo. So if you want to become informed about your medical options and your medical choices, there's your key. It's Pallas. We got a history with this stuff now. We got history, we've got receipts, we've got video. It's all there. All there. The patterns are there with Virgo. You can see them, you know them. You've been through them. We can see it again. Oh, well, let's get rid of Benadryl. Let's get rid of Benadryl and a lot of these antihistamines. Yeah, they don't need them anymore. Those are actually some very effective over-the-counter things. Benadryl is great for being seasick. Did you know that? If you're out on a boat, you can pop some Benadryl. It'll help you out. Kind of knock you out a little bit, but also help you out. These things have some uses, right? Now they're saying, well, we don't really need these things anymore. Does that get your attention with Pallas and Virgo? I hope it does. If it doesn't, it should. Everything you do from here on out should be about looking out for your wellness and your well-being. And not just that, when look at the news coming around layoffs and people that have blue-collar jobs. Right? When I say blue-collar jobs, we're talking dental assistants, baristas, mechanics, right? Door dashers, pet walkers, right? Those are blue-collar jobs. Those are jobs that people do either as a result of production or service. I don't really consider sales blue-collar jobs. Although I guess if you're walking door to door and you're selling Bibles, that's kind of a blue-collar job. Or if you're going door to door and you're selling Cutco knives, that is a fucking blue-collar job. But that's what we're looking at here, right? With Pallas, canaries in the coal mine. Look to the news this week. Look towards layoffs. Look towards what industries are being hit. As far as health workers go, they're stopping their traveling nurse programs. So a lot of the traveling nurses now they're coming back home. They're going back to either where they live, or maybe they decided to stay. Maybe they got hired on. But the traveling nurse program is coming to an end. And you're going to start to see some layoffs here, and it's going to be painful. So this is Pallas and Virgo, and you have to figure out a way to stay relevant and stay in the game, right? This is it. Everybody has a responsibility to do that. I know one guy in town, cool guy. He's works at one of the stores in town and helps people out with their health issues. He's got kind of a background in it, and it's a healthy store. And he's learning how to shoe horses and do leather work on the side, right? That's what he's kind of investing in on the side while he's doing this other thing. This is Pallas and Virgo. You've got to figure out a way to remain relevant. I mean, even what I'm doing here, they could flip the switch on the internet, comes back on. You got to provide real ID. You think I want to do that? No. You think I'm going to? The odds are very unlikely. Very, very unlikely. So then what do? Where's my pivot, right? And that's not just for astrology. That's for things like podcasting, all the things we take for granted. I think you should be thinking about pivots. This is your Pallas right here. Pallas Athena, pattern recognition in Virgo. If the world stopped to a considerable degree for a short period of time, we've already seen it, but there were enough things that were functioning in 2020 and into 2021 that kept this thing, pardon the bad pun, on life support. It kind of did. The next time something like this happens, it won't be like that. It will be basically, we're into the word D now, right? Depowering the system. And then they'll power the system back up. But when they power the system back up, it won't be the same system. And we're all sitting around, we're all kind of on pins and needles. Like, when is this thing going to go down? Well, don't wait. Try to be relevant. Try to stay relevant. Focus on your pivot. Focus on your purpose. There will always be a purpose, right? You'll always find a niche to fill somewhere. Pay attention. We're in the Taurus decan of Virgo. So a lot of the things we're going to be seeing until Virgo goes into Libra are going to be money related, job related, resource related. We've got the UAW. They want to make $300,000 a year to make cars. It's a bit excessive, particularly since they're only going to make, what, 2 or 3 fucking cars? They're not making, like, Chrysler got rid of the Challenger and the Charger. They're just going to have maybe a truck EMV, right? Maybe a car EMV, maybe I don't know, suburban EMV, right? Like, maybe that's it. That's all you're going to get. And a lot of these companies share chassis, share technology. Like, they know what's going on. They think that if they get a better contract, that when Detroit and all of its subsidiaries decides to downsize, their contract locks them in. It basically says, you can't fire us. You signed this new deal. Well, they're going to be really careful, because along with their EMVs, guess what's coming? Automation. So when you have a lot of different chassis, body types, right? Like, it's not as easy to automate. You can automate it, but it's not as easy, because you have all these different models and they've got different specs, and you need some quality control for all those models and specs. But the other stuff where it's like, yeah, we'll share chassis, we'll share frames, we'll share batteries, and we'll basically make like 6 versions of the same cars. You can automate that shit real easy. The other thing that's going on here, and I'm going to talk about this from the Mars and Libra perspective, is like what's happening in New York City and the quote unquote migrants, right? And Eric Adams, who's a Virgo, by the way, and he's not able to meet the demands of the migrants, and he's like crying for help, whatever the help is. And then you have The View, which is how the whole thing with Miami and the Cubans came up. Like, The View is like, well, they just need to go elsewhere. Really, that's what the fuck they were saying. That's what they were saying. So if you look at that period of time, you look at now and what's happening, the system is being overwhelmed, right? There are 2 people that are responsible for that. Cloward, Piven. Jeremy Cloward and Francis Fox Piven, they were economists. They were Ivy League economists, and they devised a system to break the system. And it was putting and exerting intense amounts of pressure on the city of New York, whether it was through strikes, whether it's through welfare, whether it was through public protest. They put immense pressure on the city of New York. And guess what they did? They bankrupted New York City. Cloward Piven, they used their model and they bankrupted New York City. We collectively, nationally, I guess you could say collectively, globally, we are part of the Cloward Piven operation. And they're using all of these tactics, and they're financial tactics, to break the system. They are weaponizing the system against itself. And they're using money and fiat currency in order to do this. New York is just having another version of it. Eric Adams is starting to see Cloward Piven face on, right? That is a Mars and Libra action. In order to balance the system, we will overload and unbalance the system. That's what Cloward Piven we're trying to do. We will break the system by tipping the scale so far into one direction that it'll break. And then what'll happen? Well, we'll get to rebuild the system in our own right, our own vision. We will be the ones that will restore balance. Here's your Mars. Here's your Mars and Libra. Watch out for Mars and Libra conjunct in that south node. That is full-on Cloward Piven territory. That's what that is. Cloward Piven territory. Right? And you even, what was I watching today? It was so bizarre. I was watching Tim Pool. I don't watch Tim Pool, but his feed comes up his shows come up in my feed, or his clips. Because I think Tim Pool has such a sweetheart deal with YouTube. Never demonetized. Never demonetized. I know sports channels that have been demonetized. Sports channels, right? Tim Pool, nope, gets pretty much do whatever he wants on YouTube, makes a shit ton of cash. That's a whole other story. But he had this clip on where people were literally like on their knees, and they had their hands up in the air, and they had masks on, and it was like a BLM Antifa kind of service. And it was that weird call and response thing where somebody says something and they say it back, and somebody says something and they say it. You know, that weird kind of culty call and response. They were doing that. And if you just said that this is a Christian revival, right? And you didn't have any dialogue, or you didn't have any scroll across the bottom, you wouldn't know the difference. You would not know the difference. That's what it looked like, right? And that's where we are with Saturn and Pisces, right? It's like the new religions, the new moral authority, even if you don't agree with it. Like I don't agree with that, but it's like this counterfeit faith. It was so weird. But also, we got to look at Mars and Libra, right? It's the reanimation. It is the reanimation of the downtrodden and the weary. And this is exactly what they were saying on The View, right? They couldn't even complete the sentence from the Statue of Liberty. Couldn't even do it. Didn't even know what it really said. But they knew what the sentiment was. And here we go, right? We're going to get into it deeper. We're going to get into it deeper with this Mars opposition with Chiron coming in. What is that? Conjuncting on the south node. Let's find out. All right. It's 2023. It's not that long from now. I think it's about, 2 weeks from now? Let's just get a date on it. All right. We're almost there. No, that's not that year. That was weird. It was in a different year. And it kind of looked the same. All right. So October 4th, we have the South Node in Libra, in Mars. Let's just do this. October 5th, 25 Mars Libra. We'll make it 25 with the South Node. That's March 5th. That's a Tuesday. 25. What do we have here? This is an interesting Sabian symbol. Mars 25. Let's bring it up here. Just for shits and giggles. Let's stop sharing this. We'll get back to this in a second. There we go. So Libra 25. Something interesting about this day, October 5th. The sight of an autumn leaf brings to a pilgrim the sudden revelation of the mystery of life and death. The ability to discover in every experience a transcendent or cosmic meaning. The mind open to the multifarious wonders of natural processes, because it sees everything with fresh eyes, not only witnesses simple facts, but pierces through appearances and perceives the great rhythms of universal life. Without such a faculty, the aspirant to spiritual realities is always looking elsewhere. Yet the spirit, life, God is ever present, here and now. And every death is an omen of rebirth. At the fifth stage of the 41st fivefold sequence of phases of the cosmic process, the implications of the four preceding stages are brought to a new state of consciousness, which is truly the spiritual state. It is a state of clear seeing, of seeing through. This world is illusion only to the individual who cannot see through its phenomena and fails to apprehend the reality these phenomena reveal as they conceal it. So what does that mean? What does that bode for October 5th? Well, let's talk about it a little bit. Let's bring the chart back up here. Shit, we're not even at the 23rd yet. We're beyond the 23rd. This is an interesting day. It's a very interesting day. All right. So we're talking right there, right? There's your Mars. It's going to be at 25 degrees. South node is at the end of, it's 2457. So that'll be there. Late Libra, right? So we have that. Venus will be very close to being in a sextile. We'll have the sun not far behind that, also in Libra. And we'll have this kind of, I don't know, bit of an odd opposition with Chiron. Here's what I think about it. Here's what I think about that day. You got Mars there. You got the South Node. You have this sudden revelation. It's a glimpse behind the curtain. That's what we're looking at. We get a glimpse behind the curtain. Something is in the air. Something gets our attention. And we see life in its more, how do I say this, crystalline form. When I say crystalline, I'm talking about something rare, right? Like something happens. And Libra's got that uncanny ability to kind of even out the ledger sheet, right? Something happens and we get a glimpse of something. What is that thing? What is that thing? To me, it really resonates with some form of outrageous injustice. Like something so outrageous that nobody can deny what they're seeing. But this is what it feels like. And you're starting to see people drop off of the anything or anyone but Trump train. Some of those people are dropping. It's like we got bigger worries than this guy that can't even really answer a question in a slick way with Megyn Kelly. Trump got tripped up a couple of times there. Like when she questioned him about the man-woman thing, you could tell that he had a big picture of Caitlyn Jenner stuck to the inside of his forehead when he was answering that question. He had about a 20-second I've never seen Trump do a 20-second before. Never, ever. But we're getting to this point where people are starting to kind of get it. Like I keep seeing these people on the left on some of these YouTube channels. You know, they're starting to question the Biden narrative. They're starting to say this guy's making way too many mistakes. Way too many mistakes. Like he's embellishing everything. And these are not people that the people I've seen aren't your usual suspects. They're kind of like the specialty wonks that show up on these shows to sell something. Maybe they're Intel, maybe they're Alphabet, but the message that's coming out now is that this ain't right. This is not right. So here we go. Here goes Mars coming right in here. This is the 25th. This is the 5th. The 5th at 25 degrees. Something so outrageous happens, people can't not unsee it. Is it going to restore the balance to everything here on the planet? Maybe not in that moment, but you'll see a bunch of people go, holy shit, did you see what I just saw? We can't refute this. There's no refutation, right? And what's interesting too is the symbol of the autumn leaf, right? Because it represents death, but it's a beautiful kind of death, right? And it's only beautiful for a very brief period of time before it dries out and it becomes, dust, really. So does this kind of revelation also have something oddly beautiful about it? Like, what would be an event that would get all of our attention simultaneously? Like, holy shit. Like, it's kind of like one of those things where you recognize the end of something, but in that end, there's something powerfully transcendent about it. And you realize that it's not an end, right? That it opens up its potential into infinity. Putting a lot of pressure on August or October 5th there, aren't I? That's what it feels like. When we get into astrology, you get into these aspects. You have Mars on the South Node, and everything that we've been going through, it's not just Mars on the South Node. It's cumulative. It's a cumulative process. And here we go. We bring it back to Vesta, right? And looking at things, looking at how things operate, how they don't operate, how they work, how they don't work. Don't sell me a bill of goods. Don't tell me that something is in the abstract. I want to know. How are you going to make things better? Like, that's the nature of the energy. Let's talk about Vesta. Went into 1 Cancer. The Vestal Virgin. These are, the mothers and the grand. When you get Vesta in Cancer, these are the mothers and the grandmothers of our life, right? This is all the asteroids constellate around like age and fertility and productivity. You have Juno, who is ready to go. Let's have a baby. I'm fertile. I'm fertile in Leo. I love your heart. I love your heart. Good. Let's have a baby. Right? That's Juno. It's like also it's other things too, but that's really what Juno is about. We're distilling this into Virgo and talking points. Ceres. Now that we've had the baby, I am Isis. Take my breast. Take my breast, oh little Osiris. Take of it, right? That's Ceres. Ceres is the nurturing mother. You're going to be the mother. You're going to take care of your offspring. Whatever you do, however you take care of them, right? That's Ceres. It's nurturing. It's the shepherd. It's the taking and mending and the tending of one's flock. And then we have Pallas. Pallas is Zeus's wife. Pallas is Hera. Pallas is the mature, oracular woman. Right? We'll use woman. Like they're all feminine. So she's the oracular. She's like Hera. Hera's seen it all before. And Zeus asks her, "What do you think? What do you think is going to happen over here with this funny human, this demigod, and this god?" And she'll tell him. She'll tell him. There's a scene. There's a really interesting scene in Mad Men. Right? I'll tell you a Hera. I'll tell you a Hera archetype. There's a scene in Mad Men where Dawn becomes lovers with this psychotherapist. And he immediately meets her, and she's talking about like psychology and types, and she's bringing like psychological awareness and statistics to advertising. It's what she's being paid for. And that he like, taps out of her presentation. Well, this is lightweight. I don't need to know this. But they meet up later and she calls him on it. And he has this budding respect for her. And she says, he says to her, "Oh, I'm divorced." And she said, You'll be married in a year." "I'm sorry? You'll be married in a year." And she says, "A lot of people don't think that they're a type, but there's always a type." So she's playing the role of Hera. She knows what Don Draper is going to do. He's going to get married. She's seen it before, right? That's the role she's playing. And that's Pallas. That's how Pallas operates. So in water signs, Pallas tends to be very psychic. In Virgo, it's very practical. So now we get to the oldest of the asteroids, and it's our friend Vesta, the Vestal Virgin. We get the word investment, right, from Vesta. What do we want to invest in? And here we are. We're dealing with Cancer. We're dealing with mothers. Geez, right in my playbook. It's so funny that I'll tell you a little life story. It's total Vesta, right? My mother bought a house. She made an investment, right? She bought this house. So we went on Saturday to like check something, take some pictures. So I meet my new neighbor. I'm not going to tell his name. I meet my new neighbor. I find out that my new neighbor, who is maybe a little older than me, we'll say he's a little older. His mother lives there. His mother's 90 years old. Find out that the woman across the street is 100, lives by herself. I find out that the woman across the street from us, that's across the street from, is in her mid-70s and just got married. I'm like, 4 houses, all clustered in a row. We're talking about Vestaville. That's where I'm fucking living. Or I'm going to be living in Vestaville. Isn't that a trip, right? This is what I'm talking about with astrology. It's like in my life, it's clear. Yeah, guess what? Vesta's in Cancer, going through my 8th house. So we're in a period now where these women, okay, we need to tap on them. We need to tap on them and their resources. That's part of it. The other part with Vesta here, property, right? Property, investments. Property and investments. That's what we're looking at. Where's your money? Where's your property? Like, I'd get real clear on that. Where is your long-term investment going? It's not just your home. It's also your family. It's your family members. People that work together and hopefully have, this is a time, honestly, where I'd start mending some fences. And I know a lot of fences were broken. We're back in fences again. Broken, kicked down, burned to the ground, steamrolled, right? It's time to mend some fences. Because I feel like this is a period where we're gonna need each other. Like Virgo, it's like being of service, vested in Cancer. Yeah, you can circle the wagons. You can do that, but you better have a lot of land, and you better have a lot of supplies and preps, and you better have a bunch of people to run your operation. Start mending some fences. To me, vested in Cancer is important. You can see it here. Like, we're looking at this as a snapshot of our time and what we're going through. And all three of these asteroids have changed position. They've changed signs. They're freshly minted, right? And even Vesta in the sextile with Ceres, right? You're looking at Scorpio, other people's money, things that have value that don't necessarily translate directly into Taurus in material goods. Pallas comes in here too, right? Plays a role, the mediator between the two. Pallas mediates. Let's sit down. Let's break bread. Let's get over this, right? Is your life better together than with us? Yes, it is. Are there some differences? Yeah, there are. If the shit hit the fan tomorrow, would you be able to count on me? Well, I don't know. Well, maybe we should have that discussion. What do you mean the shit hits the fan? Is that crazy talk? All right, let's back up a little bit. Let's say there was a natural disaster. There are natural disasters. They happen. There are fires. There are floods. There are hurricanes. If it was a natural disaster, would I be able to count on you? And would you be able to count on me? Well, now that you put it that way, we should probably help each other out, right? And like, if they can't do that, if they have the most flinty, cold-hearted, like, fourth chakra, go find somebody else. If they can't do that, if they can't move past certain things, maybe that's not the investment. All right, what else do we have here? Saturn's still retrograding, moving closer into square here with Uranus. It goes back to zero. Uranus retrogrades. So I'm not sure how much more we're going to have of this, where we're at the peak with it. But the Saturn-Uranus square is always about defining your own authority. Sometimes you have to step out to do it. We got into this a while back with jobs and doing the thing that you theoretically love or don't love. We got into this a few streams ago. I'm going to put a lid on the chart at the moment. I think really it's this moon going into Scorpio, the Mars sextile with the South Node, and the arrival of these asteroids into new signs. Even Black Moon Lilith is about to change signs. It's going to go into Virgo. And man, you get into Black Moon Lilith and Virgo, you're in big time Karen territory. Big time Karen territory. Let's see how well the pharmaceutical Karens will fare with Black Moon Lilith and Virgo. Not very well, I would think. All right. Let's do a little Keanu Reeves. Let's bring up the Cyberchrist. Okay. Where'd he go? Got all these other, here it is. Got all these other charts. It's always the one that's fucking hidden. Pardon my language. Here he is. Mr. Anderson. The time is a C time. It's not considered an A time chart. Lois Roden rectified it, and she is the grande dame of charts. So I'm going with Lois Roden's C rank chart. And here we have the ascendant in Virgo at 14. So second decan puts it in the Capricorn decan. You know, people that are born in second decan Virgo tend to be a bit more ambitious and driven than the two other decans. So we know that. We have Pluto on the ascendant. And one of the things that I've noticed about Keanu Reeves, besides his barely aging visage, is that he can really transform himself for roles. There was a movie where he like porked out and bearded up. I forget the name of it. And there was another, and then of course with the Matrix, he got totally cut and buffed. And so he has that Plutonian kind of vibe where he can gain weight, shed weight, change his appearance. But a lot of his movies are very underworld driven. I mean, even the Matrix, right? Like you're not in Kansas anymore, or it's clearly this descent into the underworld with the Matrix. I mean, literally, he drops into this weird thing where he pops open from his pod and kind of goes through the rebirth of the birth chamber, the birth canal, and spit out the other side, and he's like rebaptized out of the Matrix, right? Like that is so fucking Plutonian in a lot. You like literally see his rebirth process in the movie. And even like with the Expendables, right? Not the Expendables, the Replaceables, where he plays Shane Falco, the quarterback, right? Like he takes these guys who were on the streets and were really football players, and he himself had kind of got washed out of the league, and he resurrects his career, right? He resurrects his career. He resurrects some players on the team, right? It's very Plutonian. And even the whole like Constantine stuff where he's trying to redeem people, redeem these souls. It's very Plutonian, very Journey to the Underworld. John Wick, incredibly Plutonian. Like what the fuck world does that place take in? Right? So you always get this kind of Plutonian intensity with Reeves. And he's trying to ultimately become this transformer. That's what he is. He's this transformer. And he takes on sin, and he takes on burden, and he takes on all these qualities and characteristics that are quite dark, with the idea that through some form of alchemy and transformation in his various roles, not all of them, he would change them. He would change the outcome of people's lives, right? So the other thing is that with him, you're not going to get a whole lot out of him with Pluto there. And if this chart is correct, he's a 12th house sun. Nobody really, I'll go on the record. Nobody really knows who Keanu Reeves is. In this chart, nobody knows who he is. There are stories, right? He's got this girlfriend, maybe he had a kid, this little girl, right? Somebody died, David Geffen's lover, right? There are bits and pieces of Keanu Reeves. But nobody really knows who this guy is. And what do we see? This kind of timeless figure. And by the way, he looks a lot like a depiction of Jesus a lot of the time. So hence the Cyberchrist point. And he's got this Mercury Sun conjunction, right? And he's got this Mercury retrograde here, 9 and 9, very interesting degrees, like letting go, right? That's the number of letting go is 9. So there's a part of him, I think he's got a learning disability. I think Keanu Reeves has a learning, because he has that Mercury Uranus conjunction, and he's got Mercury retrograde conjunction. I bet you he's dyslexic or something. There's something about he doesn't learn in a normal way. Like, I don't know how he learns his lines. Maybe he reads them. I don't know. Maybe he reads the lines. Maybe he's figured something out. Or maybe he's got a system that allows him to remember his lines. But I think he's got a learning disability, and I don't think we know a hell of a lot about him. So what we see is we see kind of the Virgoan part of him. And he comes across as being very Virgoan in a lot of ways. He comes across as being very humble. People have kind of nice stories about him. Women love him, right? He's not going to be the guy that's going to force himself on you. Like he's even made statements kind of like that, right? Very Virgoan, but nobody knows who he is. Nobody. Like this guy is, you get his movies and his 12th house, right? And the 12th house is really the house of the soul, right? When we incarnate, we take our first breath, we get the ascendant. This is the place we're coming from. And we go around the chart, and this is the place we end up, right? So Keanu Reeves, if the chart is right, is very Piscean, right? He is a guy that is like dropped out, right? And in that regard, he's not really, in a lot of ways, of this world. That's a 12th house sun. That's what you get with the 12th house sun. You get people that struggle with the rest of the world seeing them, right? And you guys know, I love my man David Palmer. I love the Leo King. He's got Mercury on his ascendant in Leo, right? But I guarantee you, David doesn't always feel seen all the time. He doesn't. And you would think that that's not true because he's incredibly bright. And he's able to, just lay it out with Mercury on his ascendant. But that doesn't mean that he feels seen and recognized with his sun in the 12th house. That's a tough assignment, sun in the 12th house. So in as much as Keanu Reeves is an actor and he's the side fucking Hughes, nobody really knows anything about him. And that's how he likes it, right? And every now and then he'll do a goofy ass commercial. So what else do we have going on here? He's got that Venus-Mars conjunction in Leo. We talked about this before, right? There are times when he's a badass, right? There are other times where he's a sweet, sensitive guy, and he's got Venus out front. And, all the chicks dig Keanu. And all the dudes like Keanu. Oh, John Wick's a bad motherfucker. Oh, yeah? But did you see him in that rom-com? Whatever, right? Like, so he gets equal amounts of love from dudes and women with Venus and Mars and Leo, and he can play both roles. Like when I think of the movie Speed with Mandra Bullock. No, when I think of the movie Speed, right? Like he personifies speed, which if you look at his Gemini midheaven, doesn't that sound familiar, right? But you get this with him. You get the guy who is sort of the badass in Speed, but he's also very endearing, right? He's kind of charming. He has this charming relationship with Sandra Bullock. I think you get a little bit in Point Break, where, to me, Point Break is very Gemini. It's really Gemini. Johnny Utah, right? That's his character in Point Break. Johnny Utah. Is that funny? Shane Falco, Johnny Utah. And he plays a guy who is a surfer and hanging out with, the surfing crew that deals drugs and robs banks and every now and then kills people. But really, they're daredevils, right? So he plays a dual role. He plays a dual role. And he does that a lot. He's Neo, he's Mr. Anderson. Dual role. He's very Gemini in that regard, super Gemini. So you can kind of see the Point Break persona. And he's got, and even Mercury with Speed, the movie Speed, it's very mercurial. True node, 29 Gemini. There's something about Keanu Reeves. He's figuring out something about gender. Right? Like Venus-Mars conjunction in Leo. True node at the very end, aneretic degree of Gemini, the masculine and the feminine. And Mars, he's figuring something out about gender. And if it's true that he dated David Geffen, which I have no doubt that could be true. Like there's been rumors that Keanu Reeves has been gay forever. in Hollywood. Like, I really don't care, right? I really don't care. But you can kind of see the identity stuff here, right? With Venus and Mars, the masculine and the feminine, even that anaretic. He's got to get something about Gemini, right? There's something here that he's supposed to nail down. And he's just coming off of Vesta on Gemini. That's really interesting. He's rich. He's got Jupiter and Taurus here in the ninth house. That's kind of interesting because there's also the philosophical import of the ninth house, right? It's up there with philosophy, higher consciousness, higher mind. And there's also something interesting about values here. Like, Keanu Reeves has managed to maintain a base. Like, he doesn't come out and say that he's anti-trans or he wants kids to, grow up till they're 18 so they can determine what sex they want. Like, I would say Keanu Reeves is probably pretty apolitical, if anything, right? But I would guarantee you that there are dudes say, oh, yeah, The Replacements, yeah, The Matrix, fucking John Wick, right? Like, so there's this kind of traditional side of Keanu Reeves with the moon in Cancer, right? That's very traditional. You get the value stuff, and he's got that moon sextile Jupiter. He's going to get paid for it, right? So Keanu Reeves has never come out and trashed the Republicans. He's never come out and he's trashed the left. But he's managed to somehow find this middle, right? He's been able to maybe this is his true note in Gemini, this kind of interesting fusion between sort of the soft, sensitive, Keanu Reeves would never date rape anybody. Keanu Reeves respects women. And that's kind of a meme, right? That's been out there. To the other side was, Keanu Reeves fucking kills a lot of people. And and you know what's interesting is that he is not a hypocrite like Matthew McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey has killed a lot of fucking people in movies. And yet he's out there parading for the Second Amendment. Like, Keanu Reeves, to my knowledge, has never done that. And that's how he's been able to maintain this balance with values. Now, as a chart goes, he's got this great grand trine, right? The Neptune moon trine. So you can make Keanu Reeves into anybody you want to make him into. Really, you could with that moon Neptune trine. So he's very empathic, right? Like, I think that his approach to acting would also be quite intuitive in some ways. There was a period of time where he was just considered to be a horrible actor. I don't think that's the case now. Like, there are people who think he was horribly miscast in Dangerous Liaisons. He was in that movie, right? That was like, John Malkovich is fucking Moby Dick, man. Like, he's the Moby Dick of Apple, right? And Keanu Reeves was like the SS Minnow in that movie. It's like, whoa, really? You're going Malkovich and Keanu Reeves? Interesting casting. I think they cast Keanu Reeves because he was naive. Like, he was able to pull off that very naive part of himself with the beautiful Uma Thurman, right? And it worked. And I think part of it was naive and part of it was intuitive. But he's got this like extreme intuition. Like, he knows what to do. Generally, he's had a few stinker or bomb movies, but the guy has really good intuition and timing. Super good intuition. For somebody who doesn't have a lot of fire in his chart, not a lot of ambition. We talked a little bit about the Pluto on the ascendant, and then the Capricornian decan. Jupiter, pretty high in his chart. But to me, that's like wanting to get paid for shit that you're into, right? Like, philosophically, things that you're into, you get paid for them. To me, that's what Jupiter. The other thing that's interesting about Keanu Reeves, he was born in Beirut. Like, there's a weird underbelly, which we've talked about on the show. Like, his father has a history. I think his father is still in prison in Hawaii. Like, his father has this weird connection with drug dealing and soldier of fortuning. Like, there's like this really dark side. Like, he did not grow up with his father. And in that regard, Keanu Reeves feels a lot like kind of a whatchamacallit, Laurel Canyon story. He starts off in Canada, right? That's where he starts. Just like I think does Tom Cruise start off in Canada as well? If I'm not mistaken, I think Tom Cruise starts off in Canada. There's something inextricably linked to me about Tom Cruise and Keanu Reeves. They're both born around the same time, and they both have this interesting way of maintaining their values. And Cruise, of course, is a Cancer, right? There's something interesting about both those guys. In their franchises, The Matrix and Mission Impossible. Like in a lot of ways, maybe you can throw Mark Wahlberg in there, who did not start off in Canada. A lot of ways, these guys are kind of like the remnants of our last action heroes. And somehow he gets away with it, right? He gets away with being like uber fucking violent in John Wick or any of these other, Constantine, right? Like really heavy, violent stuff. And people never, they never play that card on him. He's really psychic. He's got Pallas, Juno, Neptune, all in Scorpio, third house. So again, if you look at the potential for the learning disabilities, he's going to learn differently with Neptune in the third house. And he has, I think, a pronounced, quote unquote, sixth sense, right? He's wired. This guy is wired intuitively. Right? So he's a lot of empathy. I think Keanu Reeves has a lot of empathy. And here he's got Chiron and Pisces, which is what we were talking about earlier, right? This period of time. Here we go. Uranus-Pluto conjunction, which we're going to talk about. These are people who are unusual. Uranus-Pluto conjunction people are unusual. It's, I think, hard for them to like deal with work, unless their work is independent, autonomous, or has something to do with healing, and healing in a way that is alternative. Not like if you start off as a doctor with Uranus-Pluto conjunct in Virgo, I guarantee you by the end of that time, you're not going to be a typical doctor. Trust me. And maybe if you're a doctor, you're born during this time, you can attest to this. Drop a line in the comment section. This is a time of really powerful healers. Here, think about this. So we talked about the summer of love, 68, 67, 66, 65. Here we are, 64. There's the Pluto-Uranus conjunction. People are incarnating, right, during the kind of the radiant sort of spectrum of this time. Like you're freaking incarnating during the most revolutionary period, really, except for maybe now, in human history since maybe the French Revolution. Like it's a really revolutionary time. And for an individual to be able to wrap this all up and integrate it, not easy, because these are also very collective energies where sometimes your life doesn't feel like your own. Like all of a sudden you're doing something now. How did I get here? How did I do this? I don't know how I got here or did this, but guess what? It kind of works. And I went through all these other things and I thought I'd be successful at this or good at this. And now destiny's kind of brought me here. And I'm okay with it, right? I mean, that is the beauty of the Uranus-Pluto conjunction. Where you start off is not where you finish, clearly. And you're going to have to go through either health crisis or other people's health crisis. You're going to have to figure that part out. And hopefully you have. Now, from the global stage, that's a whole different story, which we're going to come back to. And just look at this, right? Saturn, you move into like later 64, 65, and now you're doing these oppositions with Saturn and Chiron. Now, you'll find Chiron-Uranus oppositions in a lot of charts. You won't find Chiron-Pluto oppositions, and you won't find Chiron-Saturn-Pluto oppositions. Those are challenging. Like, that's a very, very thin slice of the population that has it. And I look at somebody like Jimmy Dore, who's going through health issues. He took one booster shot and he was done, right? It's like, yep, I got it. I got the big message. And he's somebody who was born with, and now he is an acolyte. He's an acolyte for truth and calling out these false prophets of the medical industry. He's fearless, right? And to me, like that's Chiron and Saturn, right? When they're there together and you got that Pluto up, you're going to go through something like the shattering of Cornell West for Jimmy Dore. It's like part of his evolution. It's like, I have to let go of the left as a religion now. I have to let go of progressivism as a religion now. I have to define authority on my own terms now. Like, not everybody's Jimmy Dore, but I can tell you that's what he's going through. So if you have this in your chart, man, you got the triple whammy. You have the triple. So now you're going through likely your Saturn return. Well, congratulations. And you'll go through it all the way through Saturn's transit, through Pisces. Whatever you haven't cleaned up by now, it's coming, right? Whatever kind of authority eluded you during your first Saturn return, don't make the same mistake with the second one. There are minor mistakes, minor tweaks, minor errors, minor fixes, right? You can be the authority, and you don't have to stand up in front of everybody and shout it from the mountain, or you just claim it. Just claim it. So we're entering into a very interesting, and it feels to me like a lot of these people, 64, 65, 66, they're the ones that if they decide that they're going to reanimate the corpse of COVID-19, this group of people is going to have something to say about it. Trust me. Maybe Mr. Reeves. Look at all the water he's got in this chart. We know he's got a ton of Virgo, but he has no fire, and he has very little air. He's hanging on by a filament, a fiber optic, with that true node in Gemini, his midheaven in Gemini, and his vertex in Aquarius. So maybe that's where he finds out about himself through David Geffen. Who knows? Not a lot of air. You know what happens with people that don't have they don't have a lot of objectivity. It's very hard for them to see themselves. 12th house, with the sun, 12th house sun. It's a really interesting chart. Very interesting chart. His biggest challenge is, work and pleasure. Saturn is work, Jupiter is pleasure. My biggest challenge, his biggest challenge is, hey, why don't we go to Bhutan for 6 months and rent yaks and hang out with Sherpas, and let's go study Tibetan Buddhism in Bhutan. Oh no, you got a contract, you got a movie to do. And he's going through his Saturn return, second Saturn return. That's interesting. So the last one was what? When do we have Saturn in Pisces? Early 90s? 94? 94. Is that when Speed came out, right around that time? Anyway, super interesting chart. But we don't know who he is, right? We just know. But he plays this theme, this Plutonian theme, over and over again, right? Crucified. And even in the final Matrix, well, not Matrix 4. So full disclosure, I haven't seen Matrix 4. Saw Matrix 3, which I thought was very interesting and better than a lot of people, I think, give it credit for. And one of the things that Keanu Reeves does in that movie, right, is he really plays the Cyberchrist. He also plays it in Johnny Mnemonic, another kind of Cyberchristian movie, right, where he has to take on this thing inside his body for a period of time for humanity's sake, right? Johnny Mnemonic is not a bad movie. It's a little too literal in some places, but it's not bad. But even with Pluto there and Constantine going to the underworld, right? He's there to damnate people or save souls, and his soul depends on it. And who knows? Maybe it depends on it more than we know, right? When you get into these weird Hollywood stories, maybe he really is Constantine. Maybe that's like more nonfiction than fiction in some ways. Like, we just don't know with him. Clearly, we don't know. There is something with Chiron in the 7th house. That's contracts, right? That's contracts, 7th house. And Pisces is the soul. And he's got this Chiron Pluto opposition. What is he trying to break free of? What kind of deal did Keanu Reeves make? Do you think that he did? It's a question. Because a lot of people in Hollywood, maybe they've done stupid shit at a certain point in time, and they didn't know what they were getting into, right? It's curious. I think from a interpersonal standpoint, he probably would help with Chiron and Pisces. Maybe pull an Elvis and buy somebody a Cadillac or something. Who knows? But I wonder about that opposition with Pluto. What deal did Keanu Reeves make? Or what deal did his parents make? There's something very dark about his parents, especially his father. Something dark about the father. And even there with Saturn and the opposition to Uranus. Very unusual. Then you get into like, who is really Keanu Reeves' father? Well, isn't that an interesting question? Is it the guy in jail in Beirut? We don't know. We just don't know about this dude. We do, we don't. He's a very interesting character. All right, let's go into, let's do some, so I looked at his chart for when the Matrix broke. And I wanted to see what was going on when the Matrix broke. So I did a synastry chart. I was like, oh, does this chart really lay out with the first day of the Matrix? It's a very interesting chart. So the Matrix broke on March 31st, 1999. So we're talking Aries. What's really interesting, again, if we're looking at the time that Lois Roden came up with, we see exact Jupiter-Sun conjunction. Like if you were going to make a movie about liberating the individual, remember it's an individual, he's the one. That's Aries. Aries is the one. And look at it, it's 10 degrees Aries, right? 10 degrees, 1 + 0, the one. This would be your day. March 31st, we're Sun-Jupiter conjunction in Aries, 10 degrees, the one. This would be your launch date. Now, I don't know if the Wachowskis know anything about astrology. That's a good fucking day. That is a good fucking day to launch this movie. Are you kidding me? A great day. Absolutely great day. We have Uranus and Neptune and Aquarius. We got this South Node action going on here. Pluto and Sagittarius, conjunct Juno, the birth of something new, right? This was the birth of a new mythology in a lot of ways. Yeah, there are other movies that kind of like, World on a Wire. You got to see it. 9 hours. You won't regret it. If you get stuck in a snowstorm, watch it. It's a very Matrixy-like movie. There's some clear parallels. Came out in the 1980s. But this is the birth of something new, the birth of a new religion. Really, this is really like, we talk about being red-pilled and blue-pilled. That's all fucking Matrix shit, right? Oh, you're no longer in the Matrix. You've been red-pilled. It's a new mythology. It's a totally new mythology. The guy's name is Neo, right? This is a brilliant movie in that regard. And they launched it on the perfect fucking day. The Jupiter-Sun conjunction, like almost exact, 10:30, 10:56, pretty damn close. And I got 11 a.m., right? And who knows? Maybe the first showing in New York City that day might have been at 9 a.m. Could have brought it right into alignment here. Jupiter-Sun conjunction. Usually the first matinee is at 11, right? That was when I used to go to movies. And then look at this. Ceres, right on his midheaven. He's going to be the freaking shepherd, right? And you think of the Matrix and you think of like the quote unquote, the Matrix and Welcome to the Real. Those are Gemini realities, right? That's exactly what this is. There's one version in the Matrix and there's one version hooked up to these sensors and diodes and doing all this shit. Like that is so Gemini, right? And he is going to be our shepherd into the matrix. Look where this is. Again, I'm using 11 a.m. New York time. I'm thinking that's the first matinee of the day in New York City, right? It's going to break there. There's the shepherd taking us into another world. Pretty damn good. For him, money-wise, are you kidding me? Sun, Jupiter, 8th house. Boku bucks. And then here's the inconjunct. Look at this. There's something about the launch of the movie in Neo where we are being told part of his story. Now, remember, I talked about those final degrees of Pisces as being the point of the crucifixion, 28 and particularly 29 degrees. And what's on the other side of that? Aries. Aries is on the other side. It's the resurrection. It's the resurrection. It's springtime, right? It's springtime. It's the change of the season. It's life force. The entire planet is interpenetrated with life force, which theoretically is connected to the crucifixion. The whole idea of the crucifixion, whether you believe it or not, the whole idea of the crucifixion is for the spirit, the conscious spirit of man and God and man to permeate the entire planet. Like the bottom of the cross is the divining rod into the acupuncture of the meridian system of the planet. Then everything gets Christ consciousness. Everything. All the plants and all the rocks and all the water and all the bugs, everything, right? And then from that moment forward, the whole idea has been to hack that, which is when we get into things like, well, genetically modified organisms. What are you doing? You're rewriting the code, the original code, right? The fire and the blood and the Holy Spirit, the Christ consciousness, which permeated everything, everything. That's what the whole event was theoretically about. Well, let's rewrite the code. We'll play God. Yeah. Why don't we do this? Why don't we just rain down a bunch of chaff from the heavens? And in that chaff, we'll have all these things. We'll have little machines. We'll have little bits of goo. And we'll write the code for everything. A tree will no longer be the same tree that it was 2,000 years ago. It'll be a different tree. It'll be, guess what? A tree that's a chimera. Let's chimera, we'll turn everything into a chimera. We'll rewrite the code. That's really what this whole thing is about, from the mRNA to the genetically modified organisms, to the chaff coming down from the skies, to the nanobots. It's all about rewriting the holy code to turn the creation into an abomination. That's what it's about. That's all. That's where we are, right? And we're in these degrees, the final degrees of Neptune. And here comes Saturn trudging through, right? Plowing this thing. It's plowing it open. We're rolling away the stone here. We're seeing what's up, right? We're talking. You want to talk about terraforming? You want to talk about they're terraforming the planet, not really for spirit, right? Maybe not for aliens. Maybe not, they're doing it for that, but they're terraforming the planet so that we are ultimately cut off from that original connection, that we have no organic reminder from the water that's been there forever, right? For the fruit that's been here forever, for the trees that have been here forever. That's the whole plan. So here, this is interesting. We have the resurrection, right? We have Sun, Jupiter, the twin suns of our solar system, right? Jupiter is the second giant. Some people think it's going to be the second sun. Jupiter, remember they had the Lucifer rocket that they supposed in there to try to like kickstart the return of Lucifer, the second sun, plays a role in 2001: A Space Odyssey, right? If you watch the movie 2012, Jupiter becomes the second sun. Where does Dave go in 2001? He goes to Jupiter. And what happens here? We got a Sun-Jupiter conjunction. Bang on, 10 degrees. And then the inconjunct, right? This is the thing that is going to change his life forever, is the launch of this movie. At 11 a.m. on September 2nd, he had a good career. Not anything like what happened after this. No way. right? So this in and of itself is a spiritual generator, right? It is like a cyclotron for Keanu Reeves, the launch of the Matrix. And the eighth house is the underworld. It is the Matrix, right? He goes to the underworld. It's exactly what he finds. Eventually, he goes to the 12th house, but you got to get to the underworld first. Saturn is here, right? So Saturn is a marker and a reminder in his chart about going to the underworld. Saturn was in Taurus at that time. So we're dealing with very Saturn and Taurus themes in 1999. So there was some hard shit going on then. You know, this is just a few months before all hell is going to break loose with the .com stuff. I've gotten into that before. What else do we have here? We have Mercury in Pisces, right here. Like Mercury is at 27, one of the final degrees. You know, here's his Chiron. His Chiron is at, what is that, 16. They're kind of wide. But nonetheless, right, Mercury and Pisces coming in, trining his moon, right, getting into this kind of, you know, stellium action up in his 11th house. Really interesting. Mercury's retrograde during this time. How does Mercury retrograde relate to the Matrix? It's an interesting concept, right? We're going to roll back the world. We're going to peel it back. You have Joe Pantaleone, right? Who wants to go back into the Matrix? Make me somebody important, like an actor or something, right? Remember that moment? There's something about this Mercury retrograde that really assists us with this movie. Whatever you think of the Matrix, man, it is a new mythology that changed our lives. And it had us remember something. It had us remember something about the fall, you know, the falling away from something that was holistic and integrated. And if you go to the end of the series, right, it's like spoiler alert. Here's a spoiler alert, okay? Just hit pause here. Hit pause for a minute, spoiler alert. He finds out that he and the Matrix are one, right? There is no distinction between him and the Matrix. This is what happens. And it's a very Chiron-esque moment, right? It's like when Chiron has his liver pecked out, not Chiron, Prometheus has his liver pecked out because he stole fire from the gods, and Chiron can't stand it. He's like, please, I can't see this every day. You know, these birds come down and they peck out his liver, and he grows it back, and they peck it out again. It's too much. Put me on the rock. So Chiron is a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice. He's a Christ-like figure, right? So Chiron here is in Sagittarius. And what is Sagittarius? Sagittarius is religion and belief systems, right? So we're kind of headed into that weird period of, you know, the Muslims and the Christians and the New Crusades and all this shit, right? Some people forget that the World Trade Center had been already bombed before 2001. So there was kind of a bit of a dark undercurrent. Ramzi Youssef was the guy, right? Ramzi Youssef was the guy that actually blew up the first world. That shit was real. Nobody really talked about that. That's your Chiron in Sagittarius. We were horrible during that time. We were over in the Balkans, bombing the shit out of these, you know, Muslim countries in the Balkans. We had a no-fly zone in Iraq. We were bombing. I mean, it's terrible. It's all Chiron and Sagittarius stuff, Pluto and Sagittarius stuff. But Chiron here, in terms of the Matrix, is also people are looking. Their own belief systems are wounded, and man, they're about to get punctured, right? They're about to get punctured. In 2001, which we're going to get into in a second, everybody's belief system crashes. So what else do we have here? Mars is in Scorpio. It's retrograde. To me, again, you're dealing with very, you know, Plutonian transformational kinds of energy. And there's this Venus, Mars. This is interesting because the Venus in Taurus, like the Matrix is theoretically real. It's like a real world. You know, everything looks real, tastes real, feels real, but it's not, right? And the Mars retrograde in Scorpio perfectly encapsulates that moment, right? Even the Mercury retrograde, I don't think it was a bad day. It's like, Oh, why would you want to launch a movie on a Mercury retrograde? Well, in this case, it makes sense because there's a lot of deconstructing going on. So the Venus-Mars opposition is really interesting. What is the material world? What's our relationship to it like? I know it's like to Keanu. Money, money, money. So let's say, for instance, the first showing was at 11 a.m. on that Monday. I'm sorry, on that Wednesday, September 2nd. That was the ascendant for the chart. And so it would put Keanu's moon, Mars, and Venus right on that time. Bang on. Who knows? Maybe there was a theater in New York that showed it at 10 a.m. Usually 11 is the time. Makes sense here. The true node is in Leo, which is kind of interesting. There's some Leo themes in here. No matter how far afield you get in an alternate universe or a matrix-like realm, there are going to be narratives and storylines that follow, like Joseph Campbell in The Hero's Journey. And Keanu Reeves is on The Hero's Journey, which is very Leo. It's super Leo. So to me, this is a fascinating chart. And the one part that just nails it is that Jupiter-Sun conjunction in Aries. Both the one, and then the in conjunct with all of his material over here. Really fascinating stuff. All right. So if you're familiar with the movie, you probably know that his license shows up in the movie. Thomas A. Anderson. Let's take a look at his license. It's a big fucking Easter egg. Date of birth, September 13th, 1971. The capital city, we'll call it Washington, D.C. for shits and giggles. So this was issued on the 12th of September, 1991. And look at its renewal date. September 11th, 2001. The date that his license expires. Whoa. Right? Isn't that interesting? You guys have seen this before. September 11th, 2001. Punch that ticket. So what are we talking about here? How does this work? Is this revelation of the method? Hidden in plain sight? Or Matt Groening, the Simpsons, writing the script? Is this astro mythicism? Is this an astro synchromysticism? Is Hollywood in on it? Does David Geffen know more than we know? Right? Look at that. The day the Twin Towers fell, the day his license expires. You can't make this shit up. All right, so I did a chart for him. The matrix ended. And then a new matrix got put in place, didn't it? On September 12th. Sure did. We're living in a different form of the matrix. All right. Mr. Anderson is kind of an interesting chart. So now we're looking at Mr. Anderson as Neo. So this would be Neo's chart from the Matrix right here. And I put it at 2 p.m. I don't know why. I can't remember now. Oh, I think it was Neptune and Jupiter in Sagittarius in the 12th house. Right, like going into the matrix. And even here with the South Node, You know what's really interesting? Oh, this is fascinating. Now we're into some fucking stinky sinky. We're in some stinky sinky. Hold on. Let's see. Okay, so in The Matrix, the day of the movie, the true node was in Leo at 21 degrees. And it's not quite the same, but man, it's close. Neo's south node is in Leo at 14 degrees. So we're talking nodal opposition. Anyway, I think it's kind of interesting. But again, this is the eighth house, it's the underworld, right? So this is interesting, like Jupiter Neptune conjunction. And this gets into this whole idea of the matrix as a new religion. And again, it's a Gnostic, there are like Gnostic themes in the matrix, right? Like even Mr. Smith said, well, we made a couple of different worlds. We made one that was a really fun one and positive, but you guys didn't like it. So now you get this living hell, right? But I think this is really deeply felt. I mean, again, we're speculating on a character, but this is the character of the movie. This is Neo's chart, right? This is his chart. So I got him down here. Jupiter Neptune conjunction, 12th house, Sag rising. And even with Mars conjunct the true node in Aquarius, to me, this is like learning all that martial arts shit, right, in the holodeck. That's very Aquarian, like learning martial arts by getting the program downloaded to you. But to me, this would be in some ways very, very Keanu Reeves-esque, right? So his, because it's Virgo, for crying out loud. He's a Virgo rising, and that would put Mr. Anderson, Thomas Anderson's son, just a few degrees off of his ascendant. And Mercury in Virgo, and Juno in Virgo. And we got that Pluto at 29 degrees. Venus at 24. Where's the connect? Where's the connect? It's going to be Juno with the sun. Juno with the sun. Something new. So it's not that far off of Keanu Reeves' birthday. So this idea of Neo as a Virgo and Keanu Reeves as a Virgo, well, they're kind of one and the same. And Neo is pulling off of Pluto and Venus. We can see Venus with the Trinity, right? We can see Trinity here. And even the three planets, which would be Neo and Trinity and death, right? Death. Pluto's death. And he gets resurrected. He gets resurrected through her love. That to me was kind of one of the hackneyed themes of the Matrix. Oh, just a kiss, right? Just a kiss from Trinity will bring him back. But it's true. And it plays a role in the movie, right? There's a resurrection role of him in the movie. And even here, Pluto 29 Virgo, like he's supposed to do something, right? That anaretic degree, dude, you're supposed to get this. What's also interesting is that Neo and here, let's bring them both up. We can do them both. Oh, hold on. You're supposed to do both. See? Sometimes it does this. It's not going to do it here. No. All right. Here, let's just do this. All right. So we got the Mr. Anderson chart. Moon at 14 Cancer. Then you have Keanu Reeves' chart. Moon at 16 Cancer. So both Neo, Keanu Reeves has the same fucking moon. 2 degrees apart. Their sun signs are correct, albeit a few degrees off, right? So there's like some crazy conjunctions going on between these two characters. And you can see even if we're just playing along with shit, right? Like through archetypes. Oops. Through archetypes. Grand trine, Keanu Reeves is a grand trine. Almost a kite pattern. Keanu Reeves is a kite pattern. The superpower is Mars and Aquarius. Is in the Matrix. You can fucking do anything, right? Trine Uranus, 12, 12. Trine Saturn. Saturn's at 6. Keanu Reeves' midheaven is at 13. So there's all these interesting connections. And even Chiron and Aries. Different Chirons. So Neo's gone through his Chiron return. Keanu Reeves will be 60 next year. Wrap your head around that. He'll be 60. I think Mr. Anderson's got a pretty interesting chart. I think Neo's got an interesting chart. Got to say. You got to believe, man. You got to believe. Well, I guess you're not the one. Sorry, kid. I guess you're not the one. That's the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. And who is it? It's Morpheus, right? Morpheus is the one that forces him. Larry Fishburne, Morpheus. I think it's interesting. The nodes are reversed for the movie, not for the individual. And even these moons, man. It's crazy moons. Cancer moon 14, Cancer moon 16. So there you go. Neo's chart. Yeah, there was the Matrix. How many people got red pilled on 9/11? A lot. A lot. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Let's get this September 23rd thing out of the way. Shall we? Let's wrap this up by 10. All right. And then we're going to go back into the 60s. Okay, so here we go. Sun 008 at 000, so just a little bit before this time, about 5 in the morning. The sun should be perfect. You know, the little egg thing, get the egg thing. Let me just sit with this. I haven't spent any time with this chart yet. I wanted to just look at it fresh, and I don't want to start riffing and miss something. Honestly, okay. What am I looking for in a chart like this? I'm looking for transits of Mars. I'm looking for the outer planets. Like, what is Pluto doing? Is it in an exact square with something? The answer is no. What is Neptune doing? Is it conjuncting anything? Well, we have a Neptune opposition going on with the sun, but quite honestly, the days prior to this, I think, are potentially more troubling. Like, for instance, the 20th and the 21st. Actually, if you go back to the 18th and 19th, when the sun is in a direct opposition with Neptune, those are days I would look at, just based on the sun-Neptune opposition, and really trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. Those are 2 days I would pay attention to. Would be September 18th and 19th in that Neptune opposition. Like, really? Here we go again? maybe feeling slightly catastrophic with a Neptune sign, but also really tugging at people's credulity in a lot of ways, trying to sell the illusion. To me, that's Neptune sun up, especially in these two signs. Like, it doesn't get more receipts based than Virgo, and more speculative and woo than Pisces. This day, the sun is already moving on. So is this day a reaction to what happens on the 18th or 19th? Question mark. File that away. We look at Mars. What's Mars doing? Well, looks like we have Mars at 17, and we have, what is that? An in conjunct with Jupiter. Okay, we'll file that away. And then we have an in conjunct with the Sun and Saturn. Well, those are two interesting in conjuncts. To me, the Saturn-Sun in conjunct feels rather arbitrary. Like, very arbitrary. Like coming to a decision or coming to some kind of, it's not a Saturday. Like, I don't know how many people are decision makers on Saturdays, but it feels quite arbitrary. Maybe what happens on Saturday leads to a decision, a very arbitrary type of decision come Monday. I do feel a little uncomfortable with this. And maybe this is a multi-stage process. Starting around 17th, 18th, and then moving into this in conjunct, and all of a sudden something, again, very arbitrary being announced. Now, on the other side of that, we have this Mars in conjunct with Jupiter, and Jupiter's retrograde. And, Mars in Libra is just itching for a cause. Itching for a cause. Here's my concern. My concern is when I see these YouTube channels getting demonetized for no reason. Like, there's this guy who I really dig. His name is Athletic Alchemy. He's a really sharp dude. He lives in Arizona. He's got a great presentation. He's got a great Patreon. He's really good at breaking down the warriors, and he's very psychologically sophisticated and brings things into like life situations. Excuse me. This guy got demonetized for no reason whatsoever. None. He may have played a few random clips of the NBA. So to me, a lot of these YouTube channels are canaries in, just like when we saw with what happened in 2020 when I got deplatformed. That's what happened. They were deplatforming people. It was a thing. They were taking no chances, but it had to do with the vote. Now we're seeing people being deplatformed for what? Money. YouTube is making, I believe, algorithmic choices. AI is probably calling the shots. These are the people, here's your pot. These are the people that you need to share your pot with. And then they get to the bottom of the pyramid. And that's when you guys have guys like Athletic Alchemy being demonetized. They're making financial adjustments. That's what I'm thinking. And to me, when I see this, there's a reason I'm talking about this, is that this is monetary. This feels monetary to me. And if shit was going to go weird monetarily, it would be on a Saturday. It wouldn't be on a Friday. It'd be on a Saturday. And you would be forced to wait a couple days for a bank holiday, right? Because banks are closed on Sunday. And then you'd have to deal with that Monday. Now, I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but if I was going to wager something, it would be monetary for this day on a Saturday. And this is Jupiter. Now, I did a webinar on Jupiter and Taurus for the members. And you guys know that when I went back in time with Jupiter, cui bono, who profited? Not the little guy. Not the little guy. All those Jupiter and Taurus moments, other people ate first. Other people ate first. And then maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years downstream, you get a little gristle thrown your way. But this is never, ever, this transit of Jupiter has never truly benefited in Taurus. The people. I went through at least 5 transits of Jupiter. You had to go back to the end of World War II to find a Jupiter and Taurus transit that was good financially. So that's what I'm looking at here. This is what I'm looking at for the 23rd. And even with the moon in Capricorn and the square to the sun and the square to Pallas, and then we come into Monday, and that Mars in Libra, hornet's nest. If this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. Now, you're going to have, so you need to pay attention. You need to pay attention on what's happening on the 18th. That's the day to pay attention. Pay attention to the 18th. That's when the sun will be opposing Neptune. That's when they start the smoke machine, right? You know the magic trick is coming when the smoke machine starts. Right there. So just be aware and pay attention. So if I had to make one informed choice about September 23rd, which would relate to something not good, it would be that. It would be financial. And then remember the arbitrary ruling or the arbitrary nature of authority with how whatever happens is interpreted. Now, nothing could happen. I'm more in the camp that nothing will happen, by the way. But if something was going to happen, this is what would happen. And you would want to pay attention to the 18th. Because that's when your spidey senses would be, do we trust this? Do we fundamentally trust this? Okay. All right, how are we doing? We're 3 hours in. Let me get into the 60s a little bit. This is what I'm going to get into with the 60s. Let's wrap this Virgoan smorgasbord up. What is this? Oh, it's a different chart. Yeah. Okay. Where the hell is it? Where the hell is that goddamn chart? All right, let's do this. Okay. May 1st, 1968. That is the day that all hell started to break loose in Paris. And so we're looking at, again, our good friends, Pluto and Uranus, right here on the outside. So the outer ring is Paris, 1968. Right? So we're looking at the beginning, the first day of the French Revolution, which, by the way, is Keanu Reeves' birthday, September 2nd. However, the year 1792. And didn't they go back there with Bill and Ted's? 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. 1792. Excellent Adventure. I know that they were with Napoleon, thanks to Catherine Rosen. So these are revolutionary times. Like the 60s are revolutionary. Make no mistake about it. Right? This is when they decided that they were going to go all in on the Cultural Revolution. This is when they started to attack the systems, right? This is where cultural Marxism was moving into play. Why? Because they wanted to infiltrate all the affairs. Like, so when the Marxists, in fact, it was, I believe it was Foucault. Foucault said that capitalism was the poison pill to Marxism and communism, because in communism, it was all about class, right? It was all about classes. These people had a lot, you didn't have shit. In the United States, that wasn't happening. Right? Capitalism was the cobra venom for Marxism and socialism / communism. They had socialism. Once fucking FDR and LBJ got through with it, we were up to our gonads in socialism at that point. But if you look back in the 60s, right, they decided they were going to go in on race, which is a big part of the 60s. They couldn't go in on class. They went on race. That was a huge deal. Huge deal. And then we saw the Cloward Piven stuff come out of the 60s, right? And unionization and all the strikes. That's all Virgo shit. Uranus and Virgo is strikes. Like the common guy is just going to strike. So it really starts to begin to happen in the 60s. It gets worse in the 70s, right? Now we're into Pluto and Libra territory. But Pluto and Virgo, we're also dealing with other social mores and values. Like, hey, guess what? You can own a car. Yeah, you work in a job or you have a gig. You can own a car. You can own a house. Like there was so much marketing and advertising happening in the 60s. And they were advertising and marketing to the common man. But they wanted to make the common man uncommon. Here he goes. Look who's here. Look who's here. The uncommon cat. Well, thanks for showing up, buddy. So we could see the unrest, right? We could see all this being fomented on this is all, some of this is Pluto and Leo shit. Don't get me wrong. Right? These are the people that are doing this are boomers. Right? But these are not their values. Right? The Pluto and Leo value is to go explore yourself, be whoever you want to be, right? Be a director, be a poet, be an astronaut, be all these things. I mean, that's Pluto and Leo. The world is an oyster, and we got a bunch of them. So Pluto and Virgo is very, very different values. And this is where we have like the identification with the oppressed. And then you have the freedom riders and, all these things. Well, I'm down, I'm down. That's where all this starts. Like the down culture starts. It starts here with Pluto and Virgo and Uranus and Virgo, right? They are going to radicalize and revolutionize the everyday man. That's what this entire period is about. And it's about the beginning of the collapse of hierarchies. And if you look around us now, listen, there are good hierarchies and there are bad hierarchies, right? If you know somebody who is solid and keeps their word and follows through on things, is responsible, right? And they head a group or they head a corporation, or head an organization, the health of that group is going to be much better because the people at the top, and there are hierarchies, they have values. And those values trickle down. This is what Confucius talked about, right? In Confucius's ideal world, the emperor shared the values of heaven, right? He abided by the law of heaven. But here we have the breakdown of hierarchies. We have the end of the university provost. or the end of the the university period. The students are taking over schools, right? They're forcing out the deans, and the ultimate goal is who? It's Nixon. We talked about this before. This is cultural Marxism. Watch Mad Men. You watch how people begin to identify with the oppressed, right? It's all here. These are the seeds that are being sown, right? And where does it come out? It comes out in the group of people that are born under Neptune and Uranus in Capricorn. They're the ones, the millennials are the ones that are going to take the torch from this conjunction to their conjunction, right? That's what it's all about. And that's kind of where we are now, and we're headed to an interesting place, but the seeds were sown for all of this in the 1960s. And I'm not saying it was, and you had Woodstock and all these festivals and, loved one another. I mean, there were so many bad fucking festivals during the 60s. People only remember the good ones. There are some really bad ones. Lots of insurance claims and bad acid and, it's just bad shit. Right. So in as much as there were good ones, there were bad festivals. But that's where everybody was at. Man, we're all one, man. It's all cool. It's all the Aquarian age. And this was Pluto and Uranus conjunct, where Uranus rules Aquarius. So we have Pluto there. There's a transformation. We're transforming from the man, right? Because that's really what the 60s were about. It's like, yeah, watch Mad Men. Watch how much shit Don has to take for being a madman. From these hippies or people on the left coast. People were not down with the man. Corporations suck. Madison Avenue sucks. Like all those values are right here with Pluto Uranus conjunction in Libra and Virgo. That's what people were, in fact, they were having a hard time when they got to the 70s trying to sell shit because there was so much rejection of these values. Like they were having a hard time selling shit. If you watch The Century of the Self, what's his name? Curtis, the guy who directed the movie, he talks about this. And what they did, what they being these corporations, is they wound up going to Stanford Research Institute. And they had Stanford Research Institute send out these punch cards to people because they couldn't sell. They had rejected material values. So they found out that when they got these punch cards back, people were into things like personal freedom, quality of goods, right? This is where your REIs and your Paul Hawkins, Hawken and this is where they all take off. Because they get that information back. We are not going to sell them on having a better car than his neighbor. What we're going to sell him on is what? A lifestyle. Or her. We're going to sell lifestyle and values. That's what came out of that period. This is what comes out of Pluto-Uranus conjunction. Companies like REI, Hawken and Company, Smith and Hawken, right? What else? Basically, all your outdoor companies come out of this period because that's what people want to do. They have this money. They want to go out. They want to kayak. They want to hike, right? And that's what they're selling. Even the car companies, they're not selling these big fucking gas guzzlers. They can't. The auto emissions wouldn't let them. So they're selling like, it's better for the environment. You're going to buy an American car made by American workers. This all has its seeds in the 60s. It gets played out in the 70s, but it's all starting here, right? It's all stick it to the man, fuck the man. Corporations are bad. Nam is bad, right? It's all happening. It's all happening. Now, what's interesting is that the same rebellious spirit is behind the man now. It's so fucking weird, isn't it? Like now we're into weird parallel timelines of realities. Because at this point in time, these people were like, fuck that. I'm not putting that on my body. I'm natural. I'm not putting that on my body. And they wouldn't. And if some corporation came around and told them what to do, really told them, they would have had none of it. None of it. But now that same kind of rebellious spirit has been fused to the corporate. I just got to think it's this Uranus-Neptune conjunction in Capricorn. And you have sort of the millennials showing up now. They're like early millennials are in their late 30s, early 40s now. I think the first one shows up, 85? So now they're really into their late 30s, early 40s. So they're making decisions at corporate level. And they've been making decisions at corporate level for a while. So this is a really interesting time. And if you look at in the inner ring, we have the French Revolution. Well, Saturn isn't quite in the same place. Saturn in Taurus, you don't want that shit. That shit is our shit. That shit is our shit. You don't want that shit. And then Saturn in Aries. You could see the kind of the revolutionary fervor here also in the 60s with that true node Saturn. There's our friend Chiron. By that time, Chiron had moved on in 1968. That's a whole different discussion with Chiron. So what links the two, really, if we're looking at both of these times? Well, one of the things that we pointed out is the true node, right? So the true node is in Virgo. And so they're really dealing with, very, very Virgoan kinds of everyday, every man sorts of issues, right? I mean, that's really what the French Revolution was about. It was a Virgoan revolution against Leo, which represents hierarchies and the monarchy. Look at all this fucking Virgo, right? They knew when their time to strike was. Let's get the people involved. Sun, Mercury, true node. Sorry, Sun, Venus, true node. Pallas. So to me, this period is like a time capsule, right? This revolutionary period, 1968, is like a time capsule waiting to go off. Remember, this is Paris on the inside. This is Paris on the inside, Paris on the outside. True node, conjunct Uranus, explosive. Venus, there's a relationship with Pluto, which is transformational. The spirit of the French Revolution reanimated the 60s. And I can say that unequivocally, astrologically speaking. Chiron and Aries, here's the moon, right? Here's the moon. Moon's at 28 Pisces. Hanging out. Here's Chiron, right there. Bang. Where is it? Where's our friend Chiron? Hold on. It's up here. One Aries, Moon, 28 Pisces. Are you kidding me? They're conjunct. And then you have Vesta here. Remember we're talking about Vesta? Vesta conjunct the moon. Vesta 29. It's almost like a time bridge between this 28-degree moon in Pisces. South node here, memory, historical memory, water, wine, blood. It's really interesting. Very, very interesting synastry chart. Venus, talked about that, the conjunction with Saturn. We got Venus here. Now look at the suns. The suns are just 1 degree off. That's crazy, right? Sun at 10. I'm sorry. I thought that was Virgo. They're 1 degree off in terms of a trine. Okay, what else? I got sideline with it. Where's Venus? Venus 17. No, this Venus. 27. Venus at 27 Aries, right? And in the center, we have Saturn at 1 Taurus. So conjunction. It's a conjunction with, again, things, material goods, hierarchies, This is a really interesting chart. I find for myself, right, the part that really grabs me is this, and this whole kind of reanimation with the true node, Uranus, Venus, Pluto, and both incredibly revolutionary times. And they're going after Virgo. They're clearly going after Virgo in the French Revolution. No doubt about it. And they're coming in here, right, with Jupiter and Neptune. Where else do we see Jupiter and Neptune? Yeah. Neo's chart. Yeah, Jupiter and Neptune conjunct. Here we have, on the inside, we have Neptune at 27 Libra and Jupiter at 29 Libra. Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, right? We're talking liberté, vive la révolution, liberté, equalité, your Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. Let's get those final degrees, especially the crazy wonky degrees. This is a map of the revolution on the inside. To the outside, to some extent as well. I just think it's so amazing. Right? We're going against the hierarchy. That's what we're doing. Where's Taurus? What's interesting here is Mars conjunct Algol. And this is in the Paris chart. And it's kind of bringing back the whole feeling of the guillotines in Paris. Even though there's nothing here conjunct Algol in the French chart, clearly. And even Black Moon Lilith, right, which is this shadowy memory. That must have been a fucking traumatic time to be a Parisian. Because you think about this shit, you learn about this in school, and it's part of your familial memory, it's part of your cultural memory. This must have been a very heavy time. And I think even de Gaulle split. He did the same thing. De Gaulle did the same thing that Lafayette did. I think de Gaulle either left or thought about leaving, and de Gaulle and Lafayette left. It's very similar. Very similar theme. Anyway, you can see the revolutionary spirit being captured in the 1960s for sure. And for those of you that were born with that, we talked about that earlier. You were born into this time where things were not going to fit. That you were either ahead of your time or behind your time in some ways. But eventually it would catch up. And I hope that as Saturn went through Capricorn, that a lot of you that were born during that period of time were actually able to kind of ramp up and find your authority. I think for a lot of you also, there's Jupiter swinging back. What does it get to, like, 8 or 9, I think? It moves forward. That can be quite helpful. Although sometimes with Jupiter, it can be just lazy. You don't always take advantage of things. Then there's always Uranus. That could be interesting. Transiting Uranus. Well, if not now, then when? Right? That's what transit Uranus is about. Anyway, not an easy time to be born. Lots of hope, lots of promise coming in on those very interesting, rays, right? Coming in on the on those photon beams, encoding your DNA through your chart. To me, it feels very much like there's strength in numbers as well. That's a strength in numbers kind of aspect. Finding other people that share your similar values around things like health, service, being a decent human, and being autonomous. I think having Pluto and Uranus in your chart suggests that you should practice a high degree of autonomy. Now, I did not say being a loner or being a hermit, but it's about the practice of autonomy. and to some degree self-sufficiency. I guess the phrase would be human or healer, heal thyself. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of tonight's show. We've been here for 3.5 hours. Don't forget our event in Kerrville, which is coming up. If you can attend, give the Inn of the Hills a call. Go to my website, robertphoenix.com, for details. See if you can get yourself a room. The rooms are gone. And go to my website and sign up. Somebody grabbed a reading during the show. Thank you for texting me. I'll reach out after the show. And that's about it. Here we go. Scorpio moon tomorrow. And pay attention. What do we got tomorrow? Pay attention to tomorrow and Tuesday. Tomorrow, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Wednesday's the outlier. Keep your high beams on. All right. Thanks for being here. Use your head in order to discern what's real. Your heart, 2 step one's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Mods, thank you so much for all of your participation and dedication. Chataria, thank you for being here. All you new people, thank you for listening. Dr. J, thank you again for your love and support and all the great things you do in your life for not just me, but for everybody else, 2- and 4-leggeds alike. And if I left anybody else out, thank you as well for being either a claritant or an irritant. We'll learn from either. All right. Take care. Bye for now.